Morning, welcome. This is the Project Oversight Committee. Today's Friday, January 24th. I'd like to call this committee meeting to order at 8:35 and begin with the roll call. Chair is present. Anthony Alto,
Present.
Lisa Baker,
Present.
Chris Moylan,
Here.
Ed Sniffen is excused, Art Tolentino,
Present.
Robert Yu,
I'm here, Chair.
and would also like to note the presence of Chair Colleen Hanabusa, as well as Natalie Iwasa online. Is there any public testimony, either in person or online? Seeing none, move on to agenda item number 3, approval of video summary of December 20th, 2024 Project Oversight Committee meeting. Is there, members, are there any comments or concerns, or are there any? I mean, it's a video recording, so it can't get any more accurate than that.
The only issue I have a problem with is approving the video recording, because I feel like I'm supposed to go back and watch it, and I'm not going to go back and watch 3 or 4 hours of our meeting.
Okay. Can I get a motion for approval?
Also move.
Second. Thank you. Motion and second. Are there any objections? The motion is approved. Item number 4, November monthly progress report, Vance and Corey. Oh, and by the way, Happy New Year. This is our first meeting of the new year. Kungi Fachoy. This is a good year. Wood snake is my year.
Oh, is it?
Every 60 years.
So you got the shirt on.
Yes, I do. I need all the luck I can get.
Morning, Chair, board members. Van Suda Hart, Project Director. Chad, if we can go to page 5. Perfect. As usual, I'll go through the overall key items. So starting with CCGS, the contractors here in the building with us. They're on the 11th floor, getting mobilized and ready and starting submittals of design documents, the required submittals, plans, procedures, things like that. They continue to have task force meetings with our team every other week. They have meetings on MOT, station design, civil designs, things like that, just to get started on the design work. We have a previous relationship with the designer, Parsons, so they kind of understand, where to start, how to start, and the key players on our team. So they continue to meet on a bi-weekly basis, go through all of that information. They've actually started geotechnical borings last week. They are in the Nimitz area currently. They started near Ka'ahi substation by Dillingham, and then they're moving their way through Nimitz. This is all, say, pre-work that needs to be done to finalize designs. So they continue to make progress. The schedule, we've had good discussions with their team with the preliminary schedule and the review of that. So we're hoping we can get through that review process for a formal schedule here in the next month or so. Moving on to CCR 4. So the microtunnels that go under the canal there in Kapalama, those are all complete. The contractor's working on installing the inner ducts in all the microtunnels. And then by the early February timeframe, they'll be all grouted and completed there. So big milestone there. If you remember, all those microtunnels go under the canal from one side to the other, very deep, 4-foot microtunnels. Not really microtunnels, but big 4-foot tunnels that go under the canal. They've completed the deepest 138 kV duct that goes under a 42-inch water line near Akepo Lane, so just further east of that canal area. They continue to make progress on Waikimilo Road, where another deep crossing, the second deepest crossing, that 138 kV duct goes under another 42-inch water line and a box drain. Then they continue to get work with HECO to accept infrastructure that's installed from the west end moving east. And that's an ongoing process with HECO to inspect manholes and make sure that all the requirements are met and accept before we can begin the electrical work. Moving on to CCR 4E, 6 138 kV foundations are completed. There's 2 that remain. They are on track to have that completed by the end of February. 2 of the 138 kV poles itself is on island. The 5 remaining are being packed up on a boat in the mainland and will be shipped over starting Monday. So that's all on schedule. Poles installation will begin in mid-March timeframe. And that's all, per the schedule that we were tracking. In terms of the wooden poles, we have 60 of the 65 wooden poles installed. So making really good progress there with 4E. And we continue to coordinate with the 4 contractor, 4E contractor. There's a big song and dance that needs to be done later on where the 138 kV lines get put in, the ones overhead get taken down, and making sure that power is restored and everything else is on track and on schedule. So there's a lot of coordination between our teams and the contractors to ensure that we have everything in place before we get to that point.
And, I'm sorry, but do you know approximately when you'll get to that point?
Do you remember?
Calendar-wise?
Mid?
Yeah, it's going to be like May or so this year.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe end of Q2,
Yes,
somewhere in there.
somewhere.
Okay.
CCR 3 traffic signal work is ongoing on Nimitz. You can see there at the major intersections, a lot of work ongoing. They are working on drainage as well on Nimitz. AIS work continues. We just received access to a few more locations where AIS work needs to be done, and some water lines that need to move. So they continue to make progress, continue to push the contractor, work with the contractor hand in hand to get them over the finish line. They are a little behind, but we continue to work together as a team, as a whole, to get them done and completed. Moving on to segment 2, or AGS. So the contractor continues to complete punch list items within the stations. Airport station, they reached interim substantial completion back in December, and they're hoping to get Lagoon interim substantial this month. Right now we're going through documentation paperwork, making sure everything's completed. Non-conformance items are done, paperwork submitted. So they're going through the process. We may or may not be able to grant that this month, but they are requesting that. And then Middle Street, they're looking at requesting interim substantial for that station in February. So they're dragging along, getting things done, but they are getting punch lists done. Pearl Harbor Station, all the punch lists that we had there, they completed. We're gonna start punch list walks or walkthroughs with Roger and his team next week, just to go through, make sure everything's in place. We took a lessons learned from the west side of all the items that they pointed out before we handed over to them, and kind of got ahead of it. Our safety team went out there, looked at any threat and vulnerability items, we made adjustments, corrected some things. So hopefully, we're hoping that everything's in place and it's just a matter of documentation, paperwork to transfer to DTS. The past 2 weekends, if you were aware, we did a shutdown with DTS. We shut down revenue service of the system. This allowed us to do very complicated testing and migration of the system from segment 2 to segment 1. So basically, segment 2 was all tested on a temporary operations control center. We did all the local testing within the stations for the comm system, for the SCADA, fire detection, locally at the TLCC for each station. And then we integrated each station one at a time together using the TLCC. Now, that being complete, we need to migrate everything over and tie everything in to the revenue service system. It's very complicated. You can imagine having a system where revenue service ends at night. We only have, engineering hours is what they call it, the downtime maintenance hours to do that, and then bring service back up in the morning. So it's very advantageous for, DTS, us, and Hitachi to do a shutdown over the weekend. They tested around the clock over the weekend. We had good participation and partnership with us and DTS and Hitachi, working around the clock through the weekend to get testing done, and then make sure that we could get revenue service started Monday morning. And I believe one of those Mondays was the start of the University of Hawaii classes. So it was very, I wouldn't say stressful, but there's a lot of students that use the system, especially LCC area and UH West Oahu. So they were able to get everything done. They actually did some tests that they weren't planning to do, so it was very successful. There were some things that was found that need to be fixed, but nothing major or critical. So majority of the testing now, say all the testing now, will occur from the Operations Control Center, Segment 1. Will be done on the engineering or off hours, maintenance hours, moving on from now. The TLCC, that will be, say, decommissioned, but no longer used for testing. So we continue to monitor all the testing that's ongoing at night, and then continue to make progress. So we're still on track to get Segment 2 operational readiness completed towards the end of this year and ready for Roger and his team to take over and start revenue service.
This might be more Roger's question than yours, Vance, but was there public opinion about the shutdown? Did you hear anything? Did Roger share anything that might have positive, negative?
I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
But probably best to check with Roger.
Yeah, it was good. From my perspective, I ride the bus, and there was announcements on the bus every time I rode it. So that was really good. And thanks.
That's all I got.
Members, are there any questions? For Vance or for Corey? Yeah, Lisa?
I was going through I've got to get to just the ones that you guys would answer in this is going to be a little disjointed, so we can go through this quickly, and it doesn't have to be answered right now, just because this is the first time I'm doing this. But one of the questions I had was, do we have a list of major milestones on the HRH test out for Segment 2?
Yes.
Like dates that is that a document that we could request or get some major dates? Not anything specific, but we're shooting for this to be done by this quarter. Okay. Then moving.
Lisa, is that a request for info?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I just noticed, and this is probably something maybe Corey you can address, but under the fare collection system, there's an outstanding delay claim for Segment 2. What is the approximate, if you have any idea? And again, I'm not sure, please tell me, board, if I'm asking questions that I shouldn't, but I was curious as to what the approximate time frame for that to be, if it comes to the board.
Don't have a good time frame for you yet, so we just received the information. We're going through the change process, but
Okay.
I'd say the next 3 months or so, I would expect. But
Okay, all right, great, thank you. On call 4, so I noticed that a contract award was made. So on call construction 4, on page 20, the planned completion date is all in 2024. Is that completed now, or are we, so that is all POW?
yeah, early
Okay,
January was their substantial
Mm-hmm.
completion, so
Congratulations,
they're all done.
that's awesome.
Yeah, not to say that there's still a lot of paperwork left.
Right, right, but still.
Work-wise, they're done. Yeah.
And we have our on-call 5.
Right,
that
with
started-
none.
yeah.
Got it, I saw that. So City Center, CCR 3, I'm on page 25. The confidence in the April 2025 date for project completion?
Good question. So we feel pretty confident because number one, we do need Coluccio. Oh, I'm sorry. We need Coluccio to leave their base scope and get out of the yard so we can
Right.
make room for two. So we're confident we're going to finish by April.
Okay,
That's not to say that we're not looking at certain scope that may have to go to an on-call or somebody else to finish in order to compete with their date. So
okay,
but we feel pretty confident that by April, that we're going to be done.
Okay, and at the end, the end of this contract, that's the last of Coluccio's contract with us?
Yes, I think the AIS may be some of the.
Yep, AIS work.
AIS work in Halapuila, some ongoing work, but yeah, or CCR3. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, good.
They
Awesome.
are a sub to CCR4. They did the microtunneling work
Okay,
under non.
okay, thank you. Yeah, that was related to that. Oh, so CCR4 electrical, HMS. There was a comment in the schedule that said they were meeting to meet with the 138 kV conductor material supplier will be on site in January to meet with HMS. The outcome of that meeting was positive?
As far as I heard, I haven't got a lot of
Yeah.
details on it.
Yeah, I didn't get any update yet.
Yeah.
I know they were here maybe last week.
Oh, so it
Yeah.
might not be for a little bit.
Yeah, it was, we
Okay.
had them last week.
Okay. And you're gonna, I'm sorry to belabor this, but the schedule for tutor is gonna probably be a couple of months yet?
Yeah, yes, but they have actually been very collaborative with us. They've shared a draft of their baseline that we were able to go through and comment with them.
Right.
Had a workshop with them to go through some of our concerns, questions. They were very responsive, so it's going well. An official baseline, though, it could be several months out.
Okay.
But
Are they meeting their current deliverable
Yes.
dates and stuff? Okay.
that's for sure.
All right, good. All right, thank you. Professional services, I don't know, does that fall under you guys or is that more Rick? It's the HDR contract. I noticed that it ended in December.
Yes, so we did a 3-month extension. They had the last option year with the current funds that was in that contract. We were able to extend with no cost 3 months. So it currently expires or ends in March. And then further in the agenda today in PLC, we have an amendment for the professional services program management contract.
Okay, great, thank you. I figured it was something I just wasn't aware of. I think that's probably it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other questions? Chris? Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. She asked several of mine, so this will be shorter from the progress report. Page 5, the city center utilities relocation that was supposed to be done in December. Was that done?
For the micro tunneling?
I can't look at the document at the same time as I'm in the meeting,
Yeah,
but
if I look at the second bullet, CCUR, Dillingham, CCUR4, microtunnel work is ongoing and scheduled to finish in December. Yes, the microtunnels
Okay.
are done, and that's the one where they're installing the inner ducts currently.
great, thank you. Page 16, the potential changes of 33 million. Could you tell me what that is? The core system?
Core systems, yeah. Yeah, so those categories encompass several changes. So this is where this is our forecast for all of our changes. Some of the bigger ones though would be the claim or segment 2 delays. That's probably one of the more significant ones. Then you have a lot of other kind of smaller ones in between, but it's a combination, aggregate of all the claims or potential changes that we have.
All right.
I believe some of that, Chris, just in case you look in the back towards the risk, the list of risks, you'll see some more detail about that.
Thank you. The page 25, the CCUR3, I think the HECO piece was supposed to be done. Did that happen?
25 CCR3. I'm sorry, Chris, what are you referring to on the HECO piece?
I was on page 25 and there were different parts of it. One of them they said, I think was supposed to be done by now the HECO piece of it. There were several different
Okay.
I
little
believe
milestones.
Yeah, I believe it is. We can double check and get back to you.
Okay, I
That
noticed that the
little
PMOs.
chevron graphic.
Yeah, HECO completed
Right,
January
that's it.
2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, let me confirm that before I respond.
Okay,
I know they're really close, but make sure
Okay.
we're punching out that in 25.
the PMOC says that CCUR3 is not on the critical path.
Yeah.
Is that because CCUR4 is on the critical path, or why is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's a much tighter sequencing with CCR4 than there is with 3. So ideally, CCR3 should be out of there in plenty of time for the contractor to get mobilized and start drilling shafts in the summer.
Okay, great. I don't know how to interpret the contingency drawdown curve on page 38. Could you give a beginner's explanation for that?
Sure.
And what would it look like if it was really good?
Sure. So this is coming out based out of our risk and contingency management plan, so agreed upon with the FTA. So if you look at the bottom, there's milestones listed on the x-axis, if you were. Those are supposed to be risk-related items that would trigger a release of some contingency. It's always kind of slowly releasing, but these are major milestones we're expected to hit in order to release contingency for us to draw down upon. So that black line is kind of our baseline. That's based on the 2022 recovery plan. So it says this is kind of the rate of contingency we should be spending, which is a good way to measure the health of our project. That blue line, the hard actual, so that's where our contingency actually resides currently. You'd see it actually kind of went up. That's been the result of optimizations on CCRs for one. We have been able to mitigate a lot of risk earlier on this, earlier in this 2022 plan. Also, just be mindful though, all of this is changing when we refresh everything with the new EAC. But that's pretty much how you interpret this chart.
Okay. So if it was really excellent, it would be lower than it is.
No, this is actually really excellent because it's way above.
We have more.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want that heart line to be above the black line. So
Okay.
if that does start dipping at the line or below the line, that triggers other actions like secondary mitigation or having recovery plan discussions with FTA. So we want that line to stay far above the black line.
Okay, great. Thank you. And last question, where do I go to find what the ridership has looked like as a function of time?
Oh,
That would be a Roger question.
yeah. I think that's a DTS.
DTS question.
Yeah, we don't track ridership in our report.
And yeah, I know, I figure someone does, and it's probably somewhere in these documents, but I wasn't able to find it.
It wouldn't be in our documents. I think that would be more of a Roger DTS metric that they track.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes, Natalie.
Thank you. With respect to Chris's question about ridership, I think the city posts that on the transportation department's website, if I'm not mistaken, at least monthly. I think they might even post it more often, and just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yes, Chair.
I'm a footnote person. That's the way I write. So on page 38, where we were, there is a footnote 6 that isn't explained. And that's the section 5307 flex capital investment funding of 30 million. Looks like expected, projected, total, received, 0. You see that? It's the section 5307 flex capital investment on page 38.
Yeah.
Pretty, right. So, oh, I see it. Yeah, they made it a head note.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
on the
so
next
what is
page.
that?
Yeah.
Where
see-
did we
do you
get,
see it
is that the funds that
on-
were transferred
on
to us by
39,
Ed
it's on
Sniffen?
top as well.
Yeah,
Footnote for 6.
Huh?
Yeah.
that was money from Ed.
That was Ed Sniffen money? Okay. So we didn't get any additional 5307 funds. Hart didn't get 5307 funds directly from the FDA. Those were the Ed Sniffen leftovers, right?
Correct.
Correct.
From Ed to basically through the FDA back through BPS to us.
To us, right, right. Okay, that, I remember us talking about the 30 million. I just wanted to be sure it was that. The other question I have is, it's more a clarification, because it does go to, and I'm not jumping ahead on CCR. I just want to know, this is the first month that we've had both the PMOC report as well as the monthly progress report. So I noticed the one thing I always look at with the PMOC report are the major issues and concerns. And of course, their number one issue is whether or not we have the money. And I was looking at it on your overall key issues. So I guess my question is there, since we're able to, it looks like the progress report and the PMOC report are now kind of coming out, and you guys, if anyone knows what the two reports are containing, is there some kind of an interface that you intend to do which tells us that the PMOC raised this as their number one concern, and this is where we are, as opposed to you coming here orally? Shouldn't that be in the monthly progress report, now that you seem to have caught up with each other? I assume next month you'll still be caught up.
We hope so.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, understand. Based on the PMOC report, noting what their major concern is, or
Right.
number one major concern.
Or their major concerns, there's two, I think.
There's two now.
There's two. So my question is, when we take these reports basically separately in silos, that kind of doesn't help. Since we're doing it now, where it seems to be catching up, and we have it together, shouldn't there be an interface between the two? Because now that they both become public at the same time?
I think we can do that as long as we get the report in time. Hoping that we're currently working on our December report and we'll have that published shortly, but I know they are concurrently working on their report, and as long as we get it on time, we can coordinate the two when we do the report and highlight any items that are in our report that they note as well. I think that's what you're asking for.
I want you to address,
Mhm,
when you don't address in your report, what is their major concern? So that's what I want, as opposed to us being a month late, because, we've made this big stink about giving us the report
Yeah.
on time. So now that they have, is there a way that you can coordinate that and address it, so that when we go through these meetings, as opposed to your oral presentation, because anybody who goes online to read these reports should probably want to know what is it that's the number one issue of the PMOC, and how do we address it? Yes. Oh,
Can I be recognized, Kiko?
Sure, of course. Sorry.
I think-
Chair, wait, hang
I
on one
feel-
sec, one sec. Chair, are you Paul?
I'm waiting for their answer.
Okay, you wanna,
I can-
do you have something that you wanna clarify?
Well, I just want to point out that I think they are saying the same thing.
No, that's not no, the point is that when they do their major issues on page 5,
Right.
which is what we always concentrate on
And that's
immediately.
the same ones that are on page 5 of the monthly report and
No,
page 4 of the PMOC report.
Page 4 of the PMOC report.
But they are the same.
The number one issue for the PMOC is our ability to budget and schedule.
Right, and I think what I understand is those 4 bullets under the design and construction have all got dates associated with them. So I figured that was a schedule, a critical path is schedule, but
It could be, but the major issue for me when I look at it is the budget. I want to know where the money is, and that's why the PMOC has it as number one. It's the budget,
okay,
and budget is not addressed
So you're just saying the money part wasn't addressed in
Well,
the
and
monthly?
I don't want to be reading and going, well, maybe that's this and that's it. I want them to specifically address it. So tell us when, because you sit in the PMOC meeting, so this is not a surprise. So you know what PMOC is talking about when they say project, budget, and schedule. So what I'm saying is, since the public and us get this at the same time, I want to know if it's possible, and if you tell me it's not possible, then we wait one more month, I guess. But is it possible for you to address the, like, for example, it just happens to be project, budget, and schedule. See, the number 2 is the CCUR 3-4, which I think is what you pointed out. But that, to me, is separate from the number 1 issue. And, you know, you can go through that and make sure that it's all addressed on that. But I'm talking about the major issue, because it's a major issue to me, whether or not we're gonna have the budget and we're out to schedule. Yeah?
We've been asking them for quite some time to try to get their reports out on a
Right.
more timely basis. So this time they did, which is good, and we hope they continue to do that. But yes, when we get the reports, we can easily go through, compare the two, and then prepare a summary of any major issues they identify that were not covered in our report. It's hard, sitting in the meeting, it's hard to know what they're going to put in their report. So it's all a matter of when we get their report and are able to do that. But yes, we
And
can.
I believe you guys can anticipate it, because you sit in the PMOC meeting, so you know what their key issues are. So maybe you would draft it, addressing it in here, and if we don't get the reports out at the same time, then you can pull that part out. But it's not like you don't know what's bothering the PMOC. You know it, right? You've known it when we had the PMOC report 3 months later. You know what the issues are. You just can't discuss it until their report comes out. So now that the reports have finally kind of jived, I want us to have a more detailed analysis of what exactly the PMOC is saying versus, and how we're addressing it. So I think we're given Rick's statement, if you guys can try to do it. And like I said, you guys know what it is. It's just a matter that we can't make it public unless we get the both reports, and we get the both reports now. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to add anything, or, no, you good? Okay. Yes, Anthony?
I was going to hold off till the next meeting because I suspect I know what the answer is. But given that President Trump has just signed an executive order to halt all infrastructure spending, and FTA officials say that they're looking at the order to try and interpret it. Have you heard any initial feedback? I think the FTA still owes us about 355 million.
Yeah, 369, I think, something like that.
369. Okay.
Yeah, we received 375 million this year.
Yeah,
And
last year, but
heading
this
into
fiscal
the end
year.
of the year, we had discussions with folks in DC, and we're told at that time that they didn't have a big concern. They felt like everything was obligated, everything was committed. I don't know what might happen going forward. Something could change, but as of right now, we don't know anything more than those discussions that we had earlier.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yep.
Thanks, Chair.
Any other questions? Robert? No. Nope. Thank you. Okay. I just had I know we're gonna have this discussion more later on in the agenda. So yeah, you know what, I'll save that for later. So just to reiterate on the CCUR 3, it still hasn't, they're still not at the point where it's necessarily impacting critical path. They are delayed, but they're a little behind, but it's not at a point where it's affecting the critical path, is that?
That's correct.
Okay. And I know this wasn't necessarily covered, but I mean, I kind of was just curious to know how, somebody sent me a picture of a car that went into the
One of the trenches.
one of the trenches, and I guess, you know, is there any status report? Is there any way to prevent, I guess, that from occurring again, or?
Yeah, I don't think the official safety report came out yet, but I know my understanding was the car tried to go around the bus, and entered into a work zone that was coned off. We can take a look at how the cones are set up to ensure that there's no big gaps between cones that cars can drive into. Now, I was driving down there last month, and there was a car that was driving inside of the work area, inside of the cone. Fortunately, there was no open trenches at that time. And we can take a look at how the cones are set up. I'm sure we do a weekly safety walk out there where one of our OSIP representatives goes out, takes a look at the work sites, provides recommendations. Cones is always one of the items there where we have dirty cones that need to be addressed or cleaned off, reflective tape that needs to be reapplied. So we'll take a look at that, and once we have the report, we can provide some further information on that incident.
Just curious. On page 31, the DB 550 CCGS, I'm not as good as everybody else on charts. Can you kind of explain the last quarter of 24? The graph,
Yeah, the progress.
yeah, the overall status. On
Sure.
page
So
30.
so typical progress curve. Oops, I lost my report. But the progress curve is supposed to demonstrate our ability to stay on schedule. So there's two dash lines, which are early and late plan, and then the actuals, or that blue line is a forecast. What we saw two large payments in the first 2 months. This was one of the agreements with Tudor to pay a lot of their mobilization up front. So that's what you see those two large bars are. I wouldn't suspect we'd have much more payments of those sizes as this project progresses. But, once we get into heated construction, they could start, getting up to the 40, 50 million. But right now, these are just reflective of those two mobilization payments.
And then later on page 40, well, I noticed on the risk management charts, it's kind of grown. If it looks like it's kind of grown, but the first one there, labor constraints. I mean, is that a I don't want to say serious because everything's serious, but is that a legitimate concern? Labor constraints?
Yeah, so you're referring to page 43.
43,
Yeah, 43. So that has been retired officially with the award of the CCGS contract. So this is going to be revised when we kind of reset everything with the new EAC. We're also going to provide a new risk register. So, but the labor constraints, a couple of the other ones related, that was assumed to be part of the proposal that we got from Tudor, that they've priced in the fact that there's going to be a risk for labor. So,
Let's see, and then on the next page, 44, there's a reference to a third party risk.
yes.
Who's a third party?
Third party, that could be HECO, that could be DPP, that could be depending on the scope and who also has a say into how that design gets completed and constructed. So typically we'd have to take it, route it, get signatures from all the different third parties to make sure they're okay with the installation. And so.
All right. And I think as far as I'll save that for later on in the agenda. Okay, I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on? Okay, seeing none, appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number 5, the October and November PMOC report. Vance and Corey again. Before you begin, is there any testimony in the audience or online? Seeing none? Okay, go ahead.
Chad, if you can go to page 4, we'll go over the major issues and concerns. So first item, as was brought up earlier, project budget and schedule. So this is in regards to the award of CCGS at that higher cost than what we were carrying in the ice. And as Rick mentioned, we met with PMOC and FTA December to go over some of the details in terms of that. Back in late October, early November, we did a risk update with PMOC. I believe I mentioned previously. where we ran through all of our risk, and as Corey noted, some of the risks that we retired, new risk based on the CCGS award, what was in their contract, and reevaluated all the remaining risk with the open contracts. It was a good workshop that was held. Hart led that workshop, so we did the risk analysis and ran that report, but had heavy involvement from PMOC. They brought in their risk expert where they provided feedback, comments. It was a very collaborative working session where some of the risks they said, hey, I think you need to add a little bit more to that, or this is probably a higher risk than it should be. And we discussed the details of that and then came out with what the new risk update or risk report that will be presented in the February timeframe. We also demonstrated the ability to fund and pay for the project. And we are currently going through updates with individual board members to give them details on how that shook out and the information. And our plan is to bring that to the February board meeting as we've been discussing the overall EAC changes, CPP moves, and the final EAC. Moving on to the next item, I think I covered majority of this, the concern in regards to CCR work and CCGS progress. One thing to note, CCR3, they are behind. We did have high-level meetings with Coluccio themselves. Franco and Lori met to discuss how to get this project done and get them out of here. Franco has agreed to participate more in the meetings. He's actually come to our weekly meetings that we have with the contractor to understand where the progress is, the issues, how we're getting the work done. Our team is working hand in hand in terms of kind of dragging them across the finish line and helping them schedule work and making sure that we stay on track to get done in that April timeframe. We did have them move out of some of the laydown yards that Tudor was promised in their contract, so they were able to consolidate, whether moving completely out of the yard or making space for Tudor so that Tudor can start staging and bringing in equipment. So they are working with us to not impact any work or any other follow-on work from Tudor. And everything else, I believe I covered in terms of CCR4 and 4E. Questions?
Members, questions?
I just have one.
Yes, Chair.
Because we've been going back and forth on this item, and that's the risk refresh. So are you saying the risk refresh will be made available next month?
Yes.
So the risk refresh, which we've been talking about from the time of Michelle, I guess, is going to, you actually did everything with PMOC in November of 2024?
Yes. So ending of October, November, we did the risk workshop where we updated everything. And then December, in our quarterly meeting last month, we ran through all the risk results and everything, and then the overall capacity to be able to fund the project.
So where are you in terms of the report? Is it done, waiting for PMOC sign-off or FTA sign-off? Where are we on that?
We can probably provide that sooner than next month.
Yeah, the report's completed.
Yeah.
They've accepted it.
They accepted
They've
it.
accepted it. They concurred with our results, and they felt they were comfortable with it. So
If you don't have any objections, I'd like to get that report to us sooner rather than next month. And you can discuss it on your agenda, but they're done. So it's just a matter of getting it to us. So why don't you get it to us as soon as you can, and that means sending it to Cindy, and from there she can disseminate to us. Well, since it's done, is there any surprises?
Nope.
Okay,
Nothing out of the ordinary.
okay.
We may be a little confusing at first. We probably need to go through like the details in each risk. It's not very, there may be some confusion, but we can do that in that February timeframe.
The February meeting, fine. But yeah, if you can get it to us sooner rather than later, yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
Chair, you're asking at the earliest convenience prior to the next.
Right, so you can discuss it at the next meeting. It's not like we're getting it right 6 days before. I think there is refreshes. I mean, we've been waiting for it since last year. So I think the sooner members have it, up to each member as to whether they want to go through it or not. But I think for those who've been waiting to see it, the sooner they get it, the better it is. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Chair, I have one question.
Stanley?
Thank you. Thank you, Vance and Corey. On the major issues, so it says it refers to the ICE, the independent cost estimate, and that the CCGS is approximately $500 million higher than that, but the contract was about $300 million more than the recovery plan. Can you explain the difference between the two calculations and what that really means for us?
Yep. I'll do my best, and then Corey can correct me where I'm wrong. So the base scope that we were carrying for that ICE was 1.13. Is that correct? The base cost for the CCGS contract currently is 1.6. So that's the 500 million or so difference from the increase from the ICE. The 300 million you're referring to, 1.3 was the all-in with contingency, and that's the 300 million difference between 1.6 and 1.3. Just a little confusion. It's not an apples to apples comparison. So 1.13 was the base ICE that we were carrying. 1.6 is the base contract price for CCGS, awarded amount.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Isa? Chris? Art? Anthony? Robert?
No, thank you.
Just one quick one. Sorry, I keep harping on CCR3, but you mentioned earlier that you may move some of the work to on-call.
We're looking at it. So when we have, because of some of their challenges in getting their base work completed, the follow-on work like resurfacing, civil work stuff is still going to be lagging. We don't really want them working on that at the same time tutor's there. So we're trying to make sure we can expedite it. So we're looking at different ways, and one of that way is maybe moving some of that scope out of their contract, getting them done earlier.
Did you say moving that scope? Is that is it de-scoping?
Yes,
is there a
de-scope.
cost? What's the cost impact?
We haven't looked at all of that yet. This is,
Not numbers, but
Yeah.
Is there a potential savings? Is there a potential, or are you just moving it?
I don't think it's going to be a savings. No, it'll save time.
Okay.
But probably not dollars.
So we're gonna incur the additional cost of moving it to on-call.
It probably. I don't know. We're still looking at it, but the cost is going to be cheaper than impacting tutor.
Right.
So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, let's move on to agenda item number, we'll go over this at the end of the agenda. Move on to agenda item number 6, contract amendment, program management support consultant 3, additional funds. Any testimony in person or online? Seeing none. Vance? Thanks, Corey.
So this is a request for approval for Program Management Support Consultant 3 additional funds. You can go to the next slide. So just a reminder that this is the HDR contract for the Project Management Support Consultant. So we're requesting approval to add funds to this contract for the remaining 9 months for option year 3. And as we discussed earlier, we did a no-cost amendment to move the end date of the contract to March, end of March. We have available funds that can get us there. To get us the remainder of option year 3, the 9 months, this is where we need additional funds. Next slide. So as mentioned, HDR is the consultant for this contract. It was awarded back in January 2017 for $63,522,953. The base timeframe for the contract was 6 years with 3 additional 1-year extension, option extensions. To date, we've had 6 amendments to this contract with no increase in contract value. Amendments 4, 5, and 6 is what's getting us to the March timeframe of this year with no additional costs. And as I mentioned, the current completion date is March 2031 of this year. Next slide. So to get us the remainder 9 months, we are asking for approval to add $2,454,500, a not to exceed amount to add to this contract. And if you go to the next slide, it's financially and logistically advantageous for us to add additional funds and get us the remainder of this option year, the 9 months. We will have to reprocure for this contract. There are no more option years beyond this. Having them or having the HDR consultant on board while we're going through the procurement and potentially overlap for the new consultant, if we have one that comes in, will allow for transition. There's a lot of knowledge that's in Corey's brain, for example, that would need to be transitioned over to a new consultant if that were the case. So it gives us a little time to procure and a little time to transition overlap between the 2 consultants if there is a different consultant. Next slide. So again, just to reiterate, we're looking at an increase not to exceed $2,454,500. This will be coming from the CPP base costs. This isn't coming from any allocated or unallocated contingency, coming from the base costs in the CPP. And we have done all the proper procedures and approvals in terms of running it through our change committee internally, and it was found to have merit on August 15th of last year. I think that's the last slide.
Members, any questions?
I have one.
Yes, Chair.
The use of the change order process for these kinds of expenditures, and I include in this like the payment of attorney's fees, like what we did in Howard Hughes for Star Marcus and whatever his name was, Rail. And this, to me, is along the same vein. In other words, what you're doing is you're using the change order process by which to add funds into a contract that is really for, and arguably, this is an HR-related contract, because this is HDR, right? So what we're talking about here is increasing the amount of money that we're gonna, and it's already substantial, so it's already $63 million for a period of 6 years plus 2 and 3 years, 3 months, right? And you're gonna add an additional $2,454,000 plus to that amount by way of a change order proceeding, which is, and HDR is a contract that's entered into. So can you tell me why you have chosen to do this by way of a change order versus having a new contract reviewed? And it could be me. It could be me, because in my mind, HDR is different than, for example, Tudor or SDG. HDR is an issue regarding supplementing our workforce. That's all they do. They don't construct, they don't do anything. They give us engineers, right? And so that to me is a different scenario than simply changing it like a change order. I had the same issue with using the change order process to pay attorneys to fight Howard Hughes. Not that I don't believe we should have fought Howard Hughes. I just don't like the change order process to be used in that way. So where did we come up with this idea of using change order process to add a contract value to a human resource contract, really, when it comes down to? I'm not saying Corey shouldn't be paid. Don't take this personal, Corey. It's the process that bothers me.
Yeah, and the way we see it, it's just a contract, and
It's easier and quicker, right? Isn't that the bottom line? It's easier and quicker to do it by way of a change order than to come before the board and say, you know, we really would like to have this bunch of engineers continue, even if it's under HDR.
yeah, I guess I can't see any other way to do this change. You know, taking it as a contract, you know, that we have, and in order to continue on services, to add funds, I don't know if there's any other mechanism to do so other than reprocuring.
And my issue along this line has always been that I have thought that one of the things HART as an organization wanted to do was that eventually we would be looking at possibly expanding the where we are, but what we need is talent. And HDR is the most expensive form of talent that we can have. Other than, you know, a Jacobs or something like that where you have a contract, I mean, HDR is different. It doesn't do, it's just people, and we have everybody in there, whether it's not only Corey, Pang Communication, all these guys are HDR. So to me, it's a way to avoid scrutiny and the oversight of the board, and that's what I don't like. Not that we wouldn't agree. I just don't like the fact that the human resource and budget, in essence, are not involved in scrutinizing what's going on. Because when you do it by way of a change order, it especially at this amount, I think it's just going to POC. It doesn't even come to the board. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chair, are you?
No, I'm still waiting for an answer.
Sorry, Lisa. You give.
Yeah, and I don't know how to answer that one.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I'm just telling you why, like I said, it's nothing personal against Corey or anyone else. It's just the process.
I
Thank you.
understand your point. You
Yeah.
can take that back and evaluate it some more also. In this case, though, this is a contract, just like Jacobs and Stantec and others that we have. It does have an option period remaining. So this seemed to be the most likely way to go. And as Vance mentioned, this is the last option period for this contract. So later this year, we will be reprocuring it totally.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I understand that on the face, it may seem to be no different than a Jacobs or anyone else. The difference is that Jacobs and everyone else, they're hiring their people. HDR doesn't technically have a group of people sitting around in an office called HDR. I mean, it goes out and it finds people. Like, for example, Sam Carnargio, HDR, right? Corey's HDR, and they're very different people. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what the theory may have been, but at some point, well, you know this, I didn't like the use of change orders for $26 million to $27 million to be attorney's fees. I mean, to me, that didn't sit well. That's a hell of a lot of money. But because it's through the change order process, you can get away with it. But I would like the fact that you're willing to take it back and consider. But I do understand the distinctions, and I would like you to understand the distinctions between an HDR and a Jacobs and Hill. Thank you.
Lisa?
I think Rick addressed
Okay.
my concerns.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Two things. One is, while the slides were up, I never saw any of them. On my view, I just have one screen that says HART board, and it was just black the entire time. So I don't know if there's some way of sharing a screen for the next time we run through a PowerPoint. Secondly, the last discussion is definitely an interesting one. Do I understand that what's going to happen is this way of dealing with it is going to be evaluated to see if there's an alternative process rather than the change order process that we could use in future? Is that what's about to happen?
Yes.
Because first I heard, I don't know any other way you would do it. And I heard Colleen saying that it would be better if there was another way to do it. So I'm not sure whether there is another way to do it or whether that other way to do it will be forthcoming.
So, let me, just so that I'm clear, are we suggesting, to defer this at this point? Or are we,
It's on your agenda,
Right.
and I think it ends on your agenda. In other words, the only way we could defer it is if you choose to defer it, or, you know, I guess we could make a motion in the whole board, if somebody wanted to bring this issue up for further discussion. But I think it'd have to be agendized. Wouldn't it? Yeah, in the next board meeting. So in essence, we'll probably agendize it to see what Rick has to say. But
in the next board meeting, meaning like in the next hour?
No.
Oh,
But that's not
February.
agendized. We'd have to agendize
okay.
this issue and how they're gonna address it in the next board meeting. So, you know.
I guess, so how did we deal with the attorney that you brought up?
The attorney issue, because of the value of it went to the full board.
Right.
So the full board approved that, and I think at that point, if I remember correctly, we really didn't have a choice. But the difference, if you recall, with Howard Hughes, was the fact that the board had sort of interjected itself into the whole settlement area through the appointment of a corporation counsel, and that was Paul Aoki. So Paul Aoki oversaw the whole thing. So we had a different level, I don't know if you want to say a comfort level, but we had our attorneys, an attorney who I felt was quote loyal to us, the board, with the corporation counsel, that he actually was overseeing the legal process of what was going on. Before that, we did have a corporation counsel. This is not an insult to her, but when she testified before us, she said she was really doing more math. You know, she was making sure the billable hours times the rate equaled whatever we were being billed. But there wasn't anybody who was scrutinizing the work, which then I believe led to the 26 to 27. And that was a change order. So that was in addition to what they had already been paid. So that's why, as a result of that, I've always been, when I look at this, because with all due respect, I just feel that it's an interesting way to
Right.
bypass our scrutiny. And that's what I want them to look at. So you can decide as the
Well,
chair of
so
this.
I guess I just want to understand, because if I understand what you're saying, we went through the same process for the attorney's contract that you're referring to. The only difference is that because that amount was a larger amount over and above 5 million, then our process, our rules required that it go before the full board.
And then we had the full discussion
Right.
at the board level
But we
about,
followed
right,
the process.
right. And also how we did the oversight of it as well at that point. So I think everyone had an understanding as to the need for us to have I mean, when you're spending $27 million in the fees on a change order, so it was in addition to whatever they had before, I felt we needed an
Right.
attorney city to
So
oversee.
let me, I guess I have a couple questions. So the first two extensions, how were those handled? Was there any requirement for additional funds?
Because we didn't add additional funds, it's just a matter of exercising that option year.
Okay, so
And-
did, over the course of this contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, was there any reduction in the contract?
No reduction in the total contract
I mean,
amount, but in terms of, when Lori came in, before Lori was here, there was a number of HDR personnel in management position. And when Lori came in, she cut that by
She
a
reduced-
significant amount. And currently we have 4 full-time HDR employees. Corey is one. We have our new design and construction director, and then we have Corey's deputy, and we have a member on our claims team. So we have 4 members, 4 HDR full-time employees on island. And previously, you know, the billing from the HDR before Lori came in, you know, we were seeing somewhere between 800 to 900,000 a month for all the HDR staff that was on site. We've since then, Lori's reduction, we're only seeing somewhere in the 200,000 a month payments.
I mean, can you, I hate to put you on a spot, but can you somehow quantify what those potential those reductions may have amounted to overall? What it reduced overall?
So going for those from when Lori came in?
Yeah. Those,
Yeah,
how much?
close to 10 million a year.
Okay.
Now
so-
we're,
So because of, it could be assumed that because of the reductions that occurred when this administration came in, now we're here and we didn't need we didn't need to come back and ask for more money
correct.
for the previous 2 extensions, but because of the savings that we incurred because of the reductions, now for this 3rd option, she's adding some of those critical, well, I don't want to say critical, but some of those positions back, which is now she's saying, okay, now I need to come back and ask for some of those funds back. I mean, is that a fair assumption?
That's correct.
Kika, there's also the aspect of the fact that a lot of the other people like Jacobs and some of the others are actually absorbing what we need. Because this is all I think this has all been a function of the fact that when the board said, hey, we want more city-related employees, that Laurie tried, but couldn't get a lot of these positions filled. But she knew the criticism of HDR, so she filled a lot of these positions that we needed through other entities like Jacobs. I think, for example, Lisa was a part of a different group. She wasn't HDR, but she was a different group. I think the major savings on HDR was Carnazio. I think Nate was also HDR, right? Until he came over to the city. And that was one of the things she wanted to do. Not that she got rid of the person, but it was like she moved it into a city position. So there was all these different shifts going on, which is fine. I just want to be sure that my issue is the use of the
Yeah. Is
change
there,
order proceedings process.
is the attorney's contract that you're referring to, is that attached to any CPP?
Yeah, it was Howard Hughes.
Okay, are there any other contracts that are not attached?
They're all attached to a CPP.
They're all
Yeah.
attached. It's somewhere. Now, the question is whether or not it's properly attached, or it should be attached.
So,
and
I
that's
mean,
my issue.
I guess, I want to make sure that we're following the right process too. And, I mean, the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, Cory, but you had mentioned that the monies that you're asking for are already in the base
Correct.
CPP. So you're not asking for additional monies over and above what already was approved in the budget.
Correct. It's already in the base CPP.
And you're not asking to use unallocated or allocated contingencies.
No.
It's just monies that are already sitting in the base budget. How much do you have left in the base?
Roughly 30 million.
So this takes you through when?
The end of this year.
And you're saying that you're gonna be able to procure the contract going forward at the end of this year? So do you have enough in that base, taking into consideration this request, would you have enough in the base to take this contract forward to 2031?
Yes. We would most likely do a 5-year base with 1 or 2 year options, similar to what we currently have.
So, I mean, I guess, Chair, I hear your concern, but I mean, I think, you know, the difference I see, I mean, we followed the process with the attorney's contract, and the only difference is because of the amount, per our rules.
No, I don't like the process for the attorney's contract either.
Okay,
Chica. It was
but-
just that we were under the gun because we had to deal with Howard Hughes. We were already, I think we were at the Supreme Court level at that point where we had to, because remember Howard Hughes had been going on for a while. So that's part of the issue, right? Because a lot of this has been going on for a while before a lot of us were on the board. Then it becomes the process.
So are you, I guess what I'm asking is, are you saying that we are not following the process?
In my opinion, I think it's an improper use of the change order process and the use of the base for attorney's fees, because we have a line item called
Okay, but
attorney's
we've already established a precedent with the attorney's contract by taking it through the change order process. And the
That's
only,
how it came to us. No, and you're right, that's how it came to us. At that point, we were under the gun because we had to do it, or we couldn't fund, because we only had like, I think, 6 million or something in the, if you went to an attorney's fees. So yes, you're right. We shouldn't have, if we were gonna take that position, we shouldn't do it, period.
but in the case of the attorney's contract, we were actually increasing the contract amount. We weren't taking from the base.
No, it was from the base.
It was from the base.
It was from the base. It was from the Howard Hughes base. It's always
So-
from the base.
I mean, I just want to make sure that the actions we're taking are,
And I'm saying I don't, this is my personal feeling. I wanna see what Rick comes back with.
okay.
But if you wanna proceed, this is in your committee, it's under your amount, then, you do what you wanna do. My position is, I don't wanna see this going on like this in the future, so I wanna see what the alternative is.
So I think given everything and, I mean, I'm ready to move forward. I think we have a pretty, big, I think we have, what, 5 or 7 people on the committee, and I think we have 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members. This pretty much represents a supermajority of the board. So, I mean, I think given everything and the fact that we've already established precedent by utilizing the same process for the attorney's contract, I think we should move forward, and then taking Chair's concerns into consideration, maybe looking at it to see going forward if this is the proper process to follow, and if it's not, what is the proper process? Because I don't think anybody's trying to circumvent or bypass procedures. I think it's, we're just trying to follow the process as we believe it exists. So, yes, Robert.
Could I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So anyway, I would support this change, whether, Chair, you want to do it today or at the next meeting, I'm okay with it. But there's a couple things I want.
Which change, the change order or the change the chair is talking about?
I'm talking about the change that Hart is proposing on this agenda item, the $2 million. But I do want to make a couple comments on these type of change. One is, just to clarify what Vance responded to you, that allocated contingency is not used in this case. I don't think that's totally correct, because the base contract is $62 million. And anytime you go beyond the base contract amount, like any other contract, you're allocating contingency to the base contract, just like any other contract, right?
So
I mean, you
it-
have allocated contingency assigned to this CPP.
So this CPP covers all project management support consultant. And we have in that, assuming we have the project management support consultant all the way to the end of the project, we've already built that into that CPP base
That's right.
scope. It's not coming from, we're not moving any funds from unallocated or allocated into the
Yeah,
CPP.
you're not moving, but because this contract is for a base of $62 million, if you ask us to approve an additional $2.5 million, in this case, to add it to the contract amount, you're using allocated contingency, unless you tell me otherwise where the money's coming from, because the base contract is 62 million, right? So
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
I don't want to
You're right.
debate the technicality of it, but one thing, Chair, I do would like to see and for you to consider is we have 4 HDR employees currently, right? And in the last 6 months, we spent $1.2 million. We pay HDR $1.2 million. That comes out to $300,000 per employee every 6 months. Now, I don't believe we pay $300,000 per employee for 6 months. What I think is there's things in the HDR contract that that are add-ons, and I don't know what those are. I think HDR's contract may be so broad that anytime HART would like additional services, it could be justified adding on to the HDR contract. And I think maybe in the next meeting and in the future meetings, it would be good for us to know how broad the HDR contract is and what else are we paying under the HDR contract other than those 4 employees. Because I don't think you know, I don't think any of the board members know. I know Hart knows.
So I
don't
can,
think anyone has ever brought this up. So we kind of need to see it. And in the next procurement of the consulting contract, I think what we need to do is find a mechanism for us to look at whether the contract language and the scope that's being bid out is too broad, that we may not feel comfortable with it. That would be my recommendation, on the procurement of the next contract.
so in regards to, I think, one of your questions, what's under or what's, included in the HDR contract, and board chair has brought up in the past, we have our PI support, which is PAN communication, and then we also have Kimley Horn, who supports us for the environmental reevaluation that we did for the FFGA. So those are the 2 sub-contracts that's within the HDR contract. Included in those 4 on-site full-time staff, we do have, I would say, roughly 4 others, part-time SMEs, subject matter experts that help us with, so 2 help us with the risk updates, our monthly risk updates, with the project team that does all the numbers and the details in the risk, and then those 2 individuals actually run the risk report and update. And then we have 2 others that support our procurement team. So they help package up all the procurement documents and ensure that we are meeting all the requirements in state laws, and put those procurement documents together with our team.
Yes,
And that's
fair. Other than
yeah, and then we have another individual that supports our oversight of the fare systems contract. These are the fare gates that you walk through, and then the holo cards where you purchase the ticket vending machines. They help us to oversee that contract.
Yeah, so, as you can see.
Yeah, sorry, 5. I
As
miscounted.
you can see, other than the 4 employees that's mentioned, there's many things in the HDR contract that we don't know about. We want to know it. I think maybe every few months on the agenda, we should include an item on what is being added on, what is in the HDR contract, or whoever the next consultant will be. What are things that's been added on since the last time it was presented to us? And I think we need the value of those add-on contracts or agreements. We don't do that, you will never know what is in there. We don't ask the question, we would get the impression that there's only 4 employees, which obviously now we know there's many more things in the HDR contract, right? And the other contract, I may be moving off the agenda a little bit, is that you should consider also looking at the details of the on-call contract. That's another contract that HART has, that things are added on, and not many people know what's added on to the contract. Just like Corey and Vance, they mentioned that, well, if Colugio couldn't do it, well, we just give it to on-call. Well, that may be okay, but as a board, we need to know how those decisions are made and how much is it gonna cost when they move one particular piece of work from one contractor and just give it to on-call. Now, that's an easy way of doing it, but the hard thing is, what's the thought process to do that, and how do we know about it, whether now or in the future? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no.
So maybe to some of the points, and I'll go first and turn it over to Corey. When Sandy goes over the org chart, it identifies who the individuals are that are HDR. And that's shown in our org chart, and I think they're color-coded or noted. The other place that you can find that is in the monthly report under staffing. We report how many city positions are filled, how many of those are PSCs, appointees, and any 89-day contracts. And we also note how many project management support consultant HDR staff is currently on the project. So the November report that we just went through, it notes that there's 3.5 HDR employees, but we recently added Ahmed, who is our Director of Design and Construction, so that'll change in the next report.
So I have a question. Corey, go ahead.
Yeah.
You wanted to?
No, and I just want to respond actually real quick because I want to make sure it's correct. We're not using allocated contingency because we do have budget line items that we forecasted throughout the end of the project, regardless of the contract size. So util would be another one right away. We have budget in our base cost to accommodate an additional incurrence or a contract modification. So just to be clear, this will not be an allocated contingency. This is coming out of base cost. So you won't see a drawdown in contingency, for example, with this change. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood.
I'm confused. If your base cost is 62 million, is that the base cost for this contract?
That's the contract.
That's the contract, right? So if it's 62 million and you're gonna add an additional 2 million, how are you saying that it's still coming out of the base cost?
Because we have a budget. So we have a base scope, and then we have another column for contingency. That budget is extending to 2031, not just to the end of this contract. So
So maybe, yeah.
I think we're talking about the same
Yeah.
thing. We're just using different words.
And I guess.
well, yeah, but the allocated contingency would indicate a drawdown in contingency. So if you're expecting to see that, you won't because it's already in our base.
Well, then,
That's
so
all.
it can't be in the base cost. If we agreed the base cost is 62 million, and
That's a
we're gonna add
contract.
another 2 million to that. How can that be in the base cost?
Yeah, you have to distinguish. There's a contract value and a
Right.
budget.
So when you say it's in the base cost,
Yeah.
you're saying it's in the contract value.
I'm saying it's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
It's in the budget, not in the
Okay.
contract. It's in the
So
budget.
if it's in the, I guess this is my problem when dealing with a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
When we look at things, and we have the right to look at things, because all of Hart's budget is really within the jurisdiction of this board. You can't, we can ask you a simple question like we just did. Okay? And we can leave with the feeling that, hey, wait a minute, it can't be because it's 62 million, and you're saying, well, we're talking about base costs and contract values are two different things, right? So what we need to be able to know is when we look at the budget, whatever the budget may be that you guys give us, we need to know what it is. So we're approving it. So you can't have a contract value or something that you put in here as the cost and then tell me now, oh, but in addition to that, you get all these independent contractors, HDR is one of them. You put all those guys together and then they collectively have an allocated contingency and an unallocated contingency attributed to them. That's in essence what you're saying. So as long as all of them together has this amount and it's less than that amount, you can come here and you can say, no, we're not touching allocated contingency.
No,
That's what you're doing. right?
No, the cash flow we have a line item for every professional service. Everyone has their own budget allocated to it.
But what you're saying is that this, what Robert just raised, that in that line item, can we agree on one thing? In that line item, would it be 62 million?
No,
What would it be?
90-something million. So like you stated, it's $30 million for the next,
the end.
for whatever the follow-on.
Okay, so on
PMSCS.
this, where is it?
And the EAC, if you look in the last column, it says the entire line item. Now, that does include allocated contingencies in it.
So,
Yeah.
so this has been another issue of
Right.
mine, right? At what point do all of this, so if this contract was left to expire,
Mm-hmm.
the 30 million at the end would have fallen into my unallocated, right? That's the way we agreed, right? Unallocated is whatever's at the end of the contract that isn't used falls into unallocated. Because
Yeah, I
I've
believe that's
always
correct.
had the issue of, why is it that our unallocated stays at 211, I think it's 220 something now, over this period of time, when all these contracts have been done, have been completed, and, you know, and I know what happened to SDG's contract, AGS. You used it to pay off NAN. So I wanna know, you can't, or you used it for, I think part of it was to pay off the 100 million. Remember, you shifted funds under the AGS contract, which should have been allocated contingency, left over, and that got shifted to pay another bill.
And that was before our time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sounds familiar, but yeah.
Well, that's exactly what you guys have come before us to testify to. That's how I made it to law school. I remember what people say. So now I'm telling you that okay, I don't want to see that happen either. Because when we look at the budget, we're supposed to be able to expect because one of the issues I've always had is why is it that the unallocated doesn't grow, and it should grow? Because you guys use it. Not that you shouldn't, you just gotta come to us and tell us you're using it.
Yep, and definitely agree. Anytime we use unallocated, it needs board's approval.
No, yeah, unallocated,
Yeah.
but you're
I know.
preventing it from getting into unallocated, that's my point. That at the point that it should be ending, the contract should be ending, that remaining amount should go into unallocated. But if you intercept it, it doesn't go into unallocated, and it doesn't come to us for approval.
Yeah, and we haven't done that. We haven't had any contract closeout where we had, like AGS, right? We don't have anything left at the end,
Yeah, because
so
you
nothing's
guys
gonna
used
drop
it
down.
For other things.
Yeah,
Other
and
than AGS.
I don't know if we'll,
And SDG.
it may be an instance where we have CCR3, for example. If there's any remaining balance there from when the contract ends, yes, definitely gonna go to
I'm
unallocated.
telling you, you used AGS money. I don't think it's been any question. You used AGS because that's something that I kept asking. What happened? Because I was like Robert, I was looking at it across the board and saying, hey, what happened here? What happened to, I think it was, I forgot how many tens of millions of dollars, which is supposed to be under allocated contingency, which disappeared. And it disappeared because you used it to pay, I think it was NAN, if I recall correctly. It was that first NAN contract. But anyway, so given that, I don't want to belabor it, but I just have a difficulty in understanding how you guys do this. I think Robert's recommendation is a good recommendation, and the other issue is which committee should it be in? Because I see HDR as part of human resources, I see it as part of budget, I see it as part of POC. I don't see it exclusively in one committee. So, anyway, Mr. Chair, I don't want to.
Yes, Lisa.
I'm wondering, Corey, in advance, if that, maybe in the project monthly report, under 211 professional services, I think where the issue comes in is the CPP for HDR is actually got more money in it than the contract. And that may not be true of these others, B, C, and D.
It's true as others as well.
Is it?
Yes.
Would it make sense to just footnote that maybe somewhere? Because I think I can see what Colleen's seeing is that the CPP shows a total original contract, just that term is, we're talking about CPP, but then we're talking about the contract. And I'm just wondering if maybe it's worth noting that,
Sure.
you know, just so this clears up some of the confusion.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to note is that I was working at Hart back when John Moore's project got ripped of its contingency, and that I don't think would happen under the current management team. That's the sort of thing, I think that's the reason why we have Lori and her team now, is because that sort of thing's not gonna
Well, I
happen.
think what we have an obligation to do as a board is to make sure it doesn't happen. And
Right,
all I'm
exactly.
asking for is that they report, that they tell us whether,
Yep.
and if you're gonna do it, but see, thank you, Lisa, I'm glad somebody else remembers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a lot of money that they ripped out from, and the thing that bothered me is then there was all this criticism about STG and AGS not being as efficient a contract as they
Right.
should have. And I said, wait a minute, it was a very efficient contract. It's just that you guys ripped it out. You took the money, and you could do it back then. Nobody was there to stop you, but I'm not gonna sit by and let you rip money.
Oh.
I mean, you can rip it, but only after you say, yes, you can rip
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
but not before that.
100% agree. Any movement of that needs board approval. And that's our stance, Lori's stance, so.
Yeah, but don't then come back to me with an unallocated, because that wasn't it. That wasn't unallocated.
No, it was
No,
allocated.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
allocated, and you
Yeah.
guys ripped.
Yeah, any movement of money
Yeah.
needs approval.
Yeah, I'd be
Allocated,
seriously surprised
unallocated,
if that
whatever
ever
it is.
happens again. But you're right, it's good
Well,
to,
I would hope so, because I think this board would scrutinize it too.
yeah.
But,
So,
you know,
Well, hang on. I mean, I just want to, I guess, clarify because, I mean, I'm, like Robert said, I think we're all saying the same thing. We're just using different terms maybe. And because the questions that I had asked specifically were if you had enough money in your base to get you to the end of the project for the new contract. And the answer was yes, there was about 30 million. And that you were using a portion of that to pay for this request. Some of and in my simple thinking, some of what put us in the situation that we're in is that we reduced costs initially, and now we're having to bring back some money to replace some of that in order to staff up again for positions that were reduced at one point. But I mean, it's clear, and it's on the budget, it's on the long-term financial plan, the current contract value versus the projected EAC at completion. So, I mean, it's not like we're not, I just want to make sure that it's not, there's no, I don't see any attempt to circumvent or dupe or bypass processes. It's all right here. And I think I asked the question and you answered it, that the money is there and we're not utilizing allocated contingency or unallocated contingency. We're using what was in the budget that we approved.
Yes.
We approved, the board approved it. So I just want to make that clear. And as far as this particular change order, again, so let me ask you this question, what's brought up by Robert, is there a way, now, I mean, I don't know, is there, because we're gonna put this out for procurement again, I mean, is there a way to discuss the contract? Because the CPP, the POC does have purview over monitoring contracts. Is there a way to take a look at these contracts without, is there a way to look at them? Is there a way that the board can review these contracts to see what the terms are? I think that's what the gist is that we're asking for, right? Is the contracts too loose? Do I understand?
Yes, Chair. And also, as the contract is enforced, the add-ons.
I mean,
that
it's
are
not
into
so
the
much
contract.
the positions, who is in it, what's the position, what's the title, what's the salary. I think the gist of it is what are the terms of the contract and how are they drafted and are they too flexible? Or I think what Robert's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, he wants to understand it. Yeah.
I think, and we can ask Dan this, but I think the problem becomes that if it's a new procurement, we can't see it.
If it's a new procurement, that's
No,
right.
I'm referring to the existing contracts, but my concern is if
I mean,
we,
they're gonna procure,
Yes, so my concern is if we start digging into the current contract, it could impact the procurement. Am I,
No, I think if you, we cannot, I think we're prohibited from interfering with any new procurement. But we could, I would assume, if this was treated as an extension, we can look at the existing contract and say what we don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's fine. The only issue is that,
just said.
so Lori,
Okay.
No, you were talking
No,
about.
I'm asking
procurement.
about, no, I'm
The current
asking
contract.
about looking at the current contracts. The current contracts, but how do they, in some way, if we're looking at the current contracts, how could us digging into that now impact the future or the future
Procurement.
solicitation?
Well, maybe what we should do is be clear. So you're talking about the future solicitation on HDR.
No,
On the
I'm
HDR
talking
contract.
about trying to address Robert's concerns about reviewing our current contracts and how they're drafted.
Sorry, I didn't hear him talking about all the current contracts. I thought we were talking about HDR's
I
extension.
think Robert mentioned HDR and one other, but I think generally speaking, and I think we're talking about HDR, this particular contract, how is it drafted? His concerns are the add-ons that are allowed contractually without board oversight that may be causing some of these cost increases.
Why
is
don't
that
you
all
answer,
right?
Robert?
You know, I-
Your
I'll
request.
try to recall what I said. So, you know, Iswan Vance reported that, well, there's 4 personnel currently in the HDR contract. So I'm looking at in the last 6 months, we paid HDR $1.2 million. And higher math tells me that that comes to $300,000 per employee for 6 months or $600,000 per employee per year. But then, you know, Vance expanded by, you know, offering that there's other things that we also pay for, which is, I don't know, the environmental study, you know, professional communication contract, and other things, right? So, you know, the question is, with this contract that's in force until December, do we want to know everything that has been paid out of that contract, the HDR contract, and what other contracts are currently in effect under the HDR umbrella? And of those contracts, what are the amounts of those contracts? So that would be in the current contract, and that would be an easy thing for HART to provide to us. It would be very easy, in fact. They're gonna have to go out for procurement because this contract expires December 31st of this year. Then the other question is, as they're drafting up the scope of work, as the committee chair, is there a way we could get involved in a way just to look at how broad the scope is, how restricted the services are, or whether the scope is so broad that any new things that HART wants to do, they could bypass the procurement process and just put it as part of the HDR umbrella, or whoever the new contractor is.
Okay, so you
And,
know
and
what?
that's what and also maybe once every 3 months, we could get a presentation or report on what is included in the new contract, what's been added to the contract since we last met. And we could do that throughout the life of the contract. And I think that would give board members a lot more comfort in knowing what's in contracts that are not very specific. I mean, we all know what the CC, you know, the City Center Guideway Station is to build. But is those broad contracts, program management, and also the on-call contract, which I'm not even sure who runs the on-call contract, it is very broad. Those titles are very broad, and you could put anything in there.
Didn't you bid on call? again?
Yep,
Because
and it was awarded.
who got it?
None.
So Nan is the on-call contractor as well?
So,
Yes.
'Cause it
Chair,
was what-
sorry,
Sorry.
I mean, I appreciate all the discussion, but I'm surprised Dan hasn't tried to rein us in yet, but, so maybe I want to try to digest everything that's been said and maybe talk about how we can achieve what you're asking for offline, but given the agenda item in front of us, given the discussion that we've had, the precedent that I believe has been set, if the process needs to be fixed, we can talk about it going forward. But my recommendation is to approve this request, this change order, for the amount requested, and if I could get a motion in a second.
I move.
Thank you.
Chair.
Engineering?
Chair,
Yes.
yeah. Before you take the vote, I did have a question.
Yep.
So this is a change order not to exceed 2.5 million, basically. I was just wondering, how does Hart control these costs that are not to exceed? How do you know that the contractor is not going to just go right up to that amount?
So we monitor and we approve additional staff under the HDR contract. You know, if Corey needs another scheduler, he doesn't necessarily have the ability to go out, just hire a scheduler and put him in. Any additional staff goes through a review process, very scrutinized review process, where not only does he need to get approval from myself, but we also need to get approval from Lori and Rick. So we monitor that, ensuring that we're not adding unnecessary staff or unnecessary contracts under HDR.
So, another part of that, I guess, would be, I'm assuming, I don't really know since I haven't seen the contract, but I'm assuming that they have to substantiate the time involved with the people that are under this contract. Does that scrutiny come at your level first and then go to the state for review, or how does that work?
So hours, meaning for each individual staff under the HDR?
For whatever it is that you're paying, and so we heard that there are four, I understand, basically permanent employees, and then you have these other staff people, which I'm assuming is part of this change order, and if I'm incorrect, please let me know. But they must have to provide some type of documents to back up what they're billing for, correct?
Yes,
So-
that's correct. Every staff, whether they're part-time or full-time, submits timesheets within a report that notes, what each time is being charged for. For example, working on the risk update, the members that spend the time updating the report, they bill for that time, and they specifically note what that time was billed for.
Okay, so that then would be reviewed by you, is that correct? And then I guess,
Yeah, me, the
Whomever.
contract manager, myself, then Lori and Rick.
and then it goes to the state for their review, correct?
I don't necessarily think it goes to the state for review unless it's audited.
I thought
We
that,
submit invoices
Ah.
for our
Reimbursed.
funding, so yes, it does go to either the state or the FTA, one or the other. But yeah, there's a very thorough review. It's detailed by person, each invoice. That's true for HDR, that's true for Jacobs, that's true for Stantec. All of the consultants submit the same type of information. It's reviewed by, as Vance mentioned, the project manager that's over the project, our contract management staff, and it goes up to Lori. Lori reviews those in detail every month.
okay, thank you. That was what I understood to happen. I just wanted to make sure that there was some kind of a mechanism to control the cost on that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion?
Chair, I'd just like to
Yes.
make one suggestion in the future, that where we have an item like this, where you're asking for a change order, but the budget line is much bigger than the contract, that you let us know what the balance in the contract is, because I actually think that could have short-circuited this conversation a bit.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any objections? Okay, thank you. The motion has passed. Item number 7, Rapid Transit Stabilization Agreement, Letter of Assent Status. Vance. Any testifiers in person or online? Seeing none. Vance.
So we compiled the list and we can provide, once this meeting's over, a list of all the main prime contractors that we have and their subcontractors that have signed the letter of assent. Currently, for example, STG, they have all of their subcontractors down to the electrical, roadway, subcontractors. They all have signed, and CCUR has signed all 3 of the CCUR contracts. Tudor has signed. Tudor doesn't have any subcontractors yet, but as soon as they bring on their subcontractors, they will sign. We have also discussed internally, we have safety briefing meetings before work starts. So kind of a pre-activity meeting when any new major work starts with the contractor to ensure that they have all the safety requirements met, safety procedures all in place, and the personnel is all in place. And at that time, we'll do a check as to ensure that any of the subcontractors that are working has signed the letter of assent. If not, they will have to sign before they start the work.
Sorry, I didn't have a chance to look through the entire folder, but is there the list that you're referring to? Is there something that you provided to the board or?
Not yet. We can provide to the board.
Okay, yeah, if you could do that. And then, I'm sorry. Members, are you finished?
Yeah.
Members, any questions? Art? Nope. Okay. Thanks, Art. So everybody on all tiers is signed letters of assent.
Correct.
Tudor Perini, no
Correct.
subcontractors retained yet.
Yeah.
But have they submitted, or did they submit any kind of subcontractor list?
They did in their proposal. They had identified potential subcontractors. I know they were ongoing negotiations with their subcontractors to bring them on board to get ready for start of work.
Can the board be provided with the subcontractor list? That was provided with the bid?
Bid? I believe we can. I'll double check to make sure, but
That's public, right?
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And then I know that there's been discussion about, I think the RTSA has a pre-con requirement. I think, and I know you mentioned the safety meeting. Are you referring to the safety meeting as a pre-con meeting?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
The pre-con, as I understand it, is an opportunity for all the parties to the RTSA to sit down around a table and try to address any potential and mitigate any potential concerns or whatnot, so that the project moves forward nice and smoothly. So I would, it might be helpful, and there may need to be more than one, but I would suggest that maybe you consider coordinating a pre-con meeting. That's just a suggestion, not, but with the parties of the RTSA. If there is already identified subs, to kind of flush out any potential concerns that may exist.
Yes, definitely. We will definitely have that.
Can you kind of keep the committee updated on when that's going to be scheduled and
Yep,
and whatnot?
we
Okay.
can report.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Item number 8, summary of committee member requests made during the January POC meeting. Cindy, do you?
Okay, so Chair, I have a request from Lisa Baker for the Hitachi list of milestones and details, right? Or dates, I'm sorry. From Chris Moylan, I have a request to report back on the CCR3 HECO work on whether it's been completed or not. and this was relating to the monthly progress report. From Colleen, I have a request for a summary or a comparison between the top concerns in the PMOC report and the monthly progress report. I also have a request that the risk refresh report be distributed as soon as possible and that it be put on the February POC meeting agenda. I have a number of requests from Robert. Were these were requests, right, relating to the HDR contract to know what was
Cindy,
paid?
sorry, not really. It's just something that I proposed to the chair for him to put maybe on maybe agendize,
Yeah,
you
Cindy,
know,
can
in
we-
future
Can
meetings,
we,
that's all.
I want to try to maybe talk
You want to have
story with-
further discussion
Yeah,
on this?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
Okay, and is it possible, Cindy, to maybe just circulate that list to the committee members? More for me, so I can
The
remember.
list of Robert's questions?
No, the list of what you just described.
Sure.
the
There's one last item, which was your request to receive the list of subcontractors submitted with the CCGS bid.
Yep,
Chair,
yes,
sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier, but with respect to the progress meeting monthly report and the PMOC reports, is it possible, I don't know when those are posted online, but can we have access to them prior to the meeting? I mean, typically I've seen other organizations post those types of documents and then the public can just get them whenever they are interested. Is that something that can be done so that we have a little bit more time to review them prior to the meeting?
Yes, Natalie, I'll send you a link to where they're posted on the project website.
Okay, thank you so much.
Cindy, is that all for the
That's
member?
all-
Okay.
That's all I have, yes.
Okay. Okay, so if there is anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, if there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Good morning. The Finance Committee meeting is now called to order at 10:32 a.m. Agenda item number 1, I'll call roll. Lisa Baker,
Present.
Kika Prukowski,
Present.
and Roger Morton is excused. Art Tolentino,
Present.
and I'm the chair, Robert Yu, and I am present. I also want to recognize Chair Hanabusa attending the Finance Committee meeting, and also online are Natalie Iwasa and also board member Chris Molan. Is that it? Yep, that's it. Okay. Oh, and also Anthony Al. He's not here right now, but he'll be back. Agenda item number 2, public testimony on all agenda items. Are there anyone in the public that want to testify on any of the items on the agenda, in person or online? Okay, seeing none. We move on to agenda item number 3, approval of video minutes and summary. 2025. If committee members have a chance to review the summary minutes and we have a chance listen to the video. And so can I have a motion to approve?
Move.
And second?
Let's second.
Lisa, okay.
I didn't listen to them though, I'm sorry. I can second it without listening. But they're
Oh, yeah,
recorded.
I think you can. Yes.
Got it.
Okay, we have move and second, and if there are no objections, the video minutes and the summary minutes of the December 20th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting are approved. Moving on to item number 4, is request for HART to submit amendment to the fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budgets, transmission letter to the mayor and city council. And HART already done that a couple days ago on January 22nd. Why this item came about was there was some confusion as to exactly what the finance committee wanted with respect to the wording. So we clarified that with HART, and they appropriately sent an amendment of the transmittal letter to the mayor and city council. If there are no questions from committee members, I think we could move on from the next agenda item, which is item number 5, December cash flow report and financial update. Richard?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Aloha. Richard Oshiro, Deputy Director of Budget and Finance. I will go as usual every month through the top line and go through the highlights for the month and subsequently a quick summary of the annual report. I guess the first thing, it's already been reported in the news, but thankfully we got the $250 million drawdown from the FTA. So it was actually scheduled to be 125 for December and another 125 million in January. It was processed very quickly at the end of the year, thankfully for everyone involved, some people at BFS, at Treasury, our banking partners, and of course the FTA and Region 9, that all the money did in fact show up before the end of calendar last year. So you see that posted $250 million for December actual. The other revenue source that was updated, $6 million of interest income for December. Moving down into operating items for construction, DD 550 for CCGS, they were paid a portion of their MOB, $74 million for December. And the only other item that was a variance to projection was we did get a benefits charge in HART 200 for the month of January through the second week of November for benefits. So that's why you see that big bump in December relative to the normal level of effort that we have for salaries and benefits. As to flow into the annual report, the only real delta that we have is the $6 million of interest income, because we don't forecast that. So that $6 million subsequently flows down to the back of the ending cash balance for the project. Positive number is up just under $6 million, but that's because of work that was paid in December. And if it didn't get paid in December, it was subsequently pushed into calendar 2025. That's my report. It was very straightforward for the month of December. Very busy at the end, but other than that, no huge activity.
Thank you, Richard.
Of course.
Members, any questions?
Yes, Chair, I have just one question.
Yeah, Natalie, go ahead.
First of all, Richard, thank you so much for putting together the Excel spreadsheet so that it just makes it easier to view when we're looking at this, not in person. But I had a question on the total projected revenue increase. I think it went from 5 million to 5.5 million. Is that all interest, or is that increase due to like rent or other things?
Talking about the cash, right, on the annual report?
Yes, the annual
Yes,
report.
that's almost entirely due to the receipt of the interest income.
So does HART have any properties now that where you're collecting rent on them, or is that kind of pretty much all done?
That should be all done.
Okay.
We are still paying for certain utility expenses if in fact there's in a relocation example, if the meter's still on in the old location and also on in the new relocatee's new home, so to speak, we will be potentially getting bills in both locations, but that's already budgeted and programmed into the TPAR budget.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Natalie. If there are no other questions, then we'll just move on to the next item. Item number 6, summary of committee member requests made during this committee.
Chair, I don't think we have any.
Okay, thank you. And we move to item number 7, adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, call to order for the Human Resources Committee meeting. This is my very first time chairing, so bear with me. And I do invite the other board members and Dan and Cindy to keep me on track here. So first thing is call to order. Anthony.
Present.
Art.
Present.
All right, Roger's excused. And we also have Kiko Bukowski, Robert Yu, Colleen Hanabusa, and Natalie Iwasa and Chris Mullen online. Is that everybody? And we have quorum. All right, just any public testimony for this agenda? Online? Seeing none. So we're on item number 3, the approval of the video summary of August 9, 2024 Human Resources Committee. I'm looking for a motion to accept it in a second.
So for the sake of getting the meeting moving forward, I will make that motion, but I do find a problem with this issue. How are we're saying we're voting to approve something, but nobody's actually looking at these videos. So, but for the sake of getting the meeting going, I'll move that we approve the video summary.
All right, do we have a second?
Second that.
Chair? Chair,
Yes.
if I may. So I actually look at those and I look to see what's in there. So I think it is important that every board member do that. It's an important step in the approval of our records. So thank you for allowing me to make that statement.
Thanks. And Art, you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and I also listened to it because I wasn't present at that meeting, and there was only one spot where the chair cut out that I couldn't tell what she was talking about, but it was subsequently picked up by the conversation. So I also approve it. So I don't think we have anyone that would object. So that has been accepted.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is probably to Dan. What we're approving is the video summaries, not the video themselves. And the video summaries are attached. I think that so we're attaching the video summaries. And that's what we're approving.
The approval is of the written summary that Cindy does. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
And those are
it's
where.
not watching the whole thing.
It's just making sure that where she has
Yeah,
the,
what it's
Got it.
attached here is your videos, and that's what's required under the new sunshine law. I know I drive my other committee crazy, but yeah. So I think that as conscientious as you are, Anthony, you don't.
I don't have to watch 3 or 4 hours of meetings. that
Well,
I sat
you can fast forward, call to order to 0.010, is at 0.010, and public testimonies called at 1.13. I just wanted to, because
Right.
I know that Lisa was saying earlier how she actually watched the whole thing.
I did.
Because she wasn't at the meeting.
That time.
So that's okay. But, you
All
know.
right, does that change anyone's motion or second or voting and approval? Okay. Okay, any public testimony on the next line item on the agenda? Seeing none. Agenda item number 4, Executive Director and CEO's Annual Performance Evaluation Schedule and Process. And if you could turn to that tab in the binder. Cindy was kind enough to put together a schedule for us. I didn't see any problems with it, but I probably wouldn't know better. So I'm asking for input from anyone that's on the committee or any other board member. The goal would be to try to have this wrapped up by the second month of this calendar year. And assuming I'm still chair in subsequent calendar years, we would start this process earlier so that we would be wrapped up by the end of the year. So the dates are all feasible? Okay, the process is basically the same as what we've done in the past for the past 3 years of this contract, and this is the 2021 signed contract, not the one that was just negotiated and signed in 2024. So the performance factors are listed. The one thing that I am suggesting that we'll need to vote on is I'm recommending that we just do a meets or does not meet criteria, since there was, and I listened to not only the August meeting, but all the other meetings last year. And I think we have had sufficient conversation about evaluation and performance to just do basically a thumb up, thumb down for the 2024 year. So consider that. And then the other part of that is that if there is an area of does not meet, actually for both, we tend to focus on all of the negative, but on both, if specific examples with as much detail as possible could be provided. One of the things that I noticed in these reviews is historically, there's not a lot of detail. It seems to be more subjective. So I'm suggesting or requesting that we try to make our comments, and as is human nature, to focus, if we focus on something that is perceived to be a negative or does not meet, that we can be as specific as possible. Otherwise, I think the criticism, it becomes criticism rather than constructive feedback. And I think the point of an evaluation is to provide constructive feedback. So is there any discussion or question about that? Is that acceptable to everybody? We'll take a motion and a vote, but I'm just looking for discussion at this point.
Chair, this is Natalie.
Yes.
I really appreciate that. I think that making it simpler will just be better for everybody, and then putting a deadline on it. Last year's evaluation, I don't know when it technically ended, but it seemed to go on and on and on for months, and that's not good for anybody. So appreciate your thought process on this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, one last thing before we go into a vote is that at the same time, for this year, we need to, for 2025, we need to determine the metrics from which we expect the executive director and CEO to perform to. So we started that process already. Lori sent me her first draft of the list on January 10th as per contract. And as per contract, we must have an answer back to her by March 10th. So in the same process as you're going through last year and other years, and we did not have performance metrics that I've been able to locate for last year, for 2024. If you could be thinking about the metrics, and I am meeting with Lori and her staff to go over some of the things that she provided already, and then we'll meet on February 21st as an agenda item to hopefully confirm what our 2025 objectives are, or metrics. Is that, yes?
Just a technical question. Because it's a personnel matter, it can be basically an executive session and confidential. Laurie, do you want it in executive session? Because if we don't do it now, it may not be put on the agenda properly. So it's up to Laurie as to whether we will discuss the preliminary stages in executive session.
For the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything that now deals with the personnel issue, her evaluations and so forth, just be sure that we have, if you post it without the executive session, we would have problems, right? We need to do the executive session.
So we can post the note that there may be an executive
Right.
session, which covers us in case we do. There's a lot that the committee and the board are going to do that won't be an executive session. So for example, this discussion, not an executive
Right.
discussion. Discussion of performance metrics would be an open session as well. The only things that we'd be concerned about would be, for example, Lori's self-evaluation and any preliminary drafts of the evaluation that the committee or the board is going to do. Once it's final, though, that final evaluation would be public. And of course, if Lori wants to waive and have everything open, that's her right also.
And I think just for, just so that we're all good about it, that if we can give Lori a more detailed, I guess, what we may be talking about, then she can either take issue with our decision that it's not subject to executive session and say that it is, it should be. So, to the extent that, because we're dealing with a personnel matter, if we
Right.
can be very clear about what we're going to talk about, and you probably have a discussion before, and so we know. I just don't want us violating Laurie's rights.
Right. Did you have something to add?
No, I was going to echo that as well, that you can have conversations with Lori in advance. And yeah.
Thank you. I'm learning. Okay, so that's.
Chair,
Oh,
question.
yes, I'm sorry.
Just to be clear, so what you're proposing is, for our evaluation, you are proposing whether she meets or don't meet. Those are the only choices.
Yes.
There's no anything in between.
No.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I
Right.
mean, it
If-
makes it a little bit harder, but that's okay.
But you can write comments,
You
right?
can write comments, yes,
Whether,
please.
whichever
Be
way you
detailed.
go, you can write
Right.
comments.
And the reason why I didn't do anything more than that is that we went through, it felt like we had hashed an evaluation of Lori's performance up to last spring in negotiating her contract. And so to go back over it again, she was given the contract, so to go back over it again seemed unnecessary, but that would just be for this year.
But we are evaluating her 2024 performance, right? So that's kind of weird. What if, let's just hypothetically speaking, all the board members' votes don't meet? What's the recourse? What's the remedy? Because we already gave her a new contract that started this year, right?
Right.
So, but we're evaluating something that we already gave her.
Right, and that's why I'm kind of trying to slim this evaluation process down, because we've already awarded the contract. So clearly, she must meet most of, or a good majority of what her requirements were. Otherwise, we would not have renewed or
But if
rewritten
you
the contract.
already, we have already pre-concluded that she meet, then I just don't see, I know we have to do it. I just don't see a reason to do it.
And that was my,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you all want to think about, I do have, an issue with it just thumb up or thumb down. It's just too easy.
Right, and I think I'm not trying to make it so easy as to be insignificant, more to keep it to constructive feedback, because ultimately the evaluation was concluded throughout the contract negotiations. So that's why what Colleen was saying about specifics or adding comments, please add comments, as specific as possible. But if everybody on the board came back with it does not meet, then the question would be to the board, why did we extend a new contract? And I'm sure that the contract was signed in September, so the majority of 2024 had passed by the time that contract was signed. That I would hope that as a board, we would have addressed issues in that contract that occurred in 2024. Does that, I don't,
No, that's fine. Yeah.
that's all my thinking was.
We'll see how the evaluation comes, right? The timing is just weird. There's nothing we could do about it. It's just the way it is. But it's just weird. We're evaluating a year that we offered the new contract for whatever reason, right? There could still be thumbs down for whatever reason.
Right, exactly.
And, I don't know.
If that helps, so the charter says that the board has to evaluate the CEO at least annually. It doesn't say when, and you can do more than annually. So you can change the timing if you want to, just so long as there is at least one annual evaluation.
Unless there's an objection, I'd like to keep to this schedule. And basically, just to go through this schedule, is that you have the document now to review and to start providing comments and input all of the comments and input go back to Cindy, and she will put them together. That's by February 10th. She will merge all of the contents together and make them anonymous so that none of us and I will not see whose comments are being made by whom. And then I believe she'll give that report to me. And do I distribute it to the committee? Okay. And for the purposes of trying to keep this very streamlined this year, we'll try to get it to the point where we can approve it, the outcome, the resulting report to the mayor and city council by the next board meeting. So it's pretty aggressive, but of all years, it seems like this is the potential year to be aggressive on it.
Procedural question. Maybe this is more for Dan or board chair. So, board chair, you recused yourself earlier for any personnel issues with me. Are you still recusing yourself? So, even the evaluation?
No, I'm not recusing myself from the evaluation. Your contract has been approved by the board.
It's only the contract.
Yeah.
So, do you know the status of the investigation? I haven't heard anything either.
I don't either.
Could you follow up, please, Dan?
Sure.
Thanks.
Chair? Just one minor amendment. At the end of this, you have a recommended bonus.
Yeah.
Laurie has said in the past that she's not interested in a bonus. I think you actually don't think that public employees should.
As committee chair put in the second one, I will give normally I give it about midway in January, but we did do a survey this year and I want to present it to our heart team first. So that's why I asked for this delayed. Our all hands meeting is on Monday. And so I want to present the results to them first before I give it to you folks. So I appreciate you folks delaying this. But
You've done an anonymous survey of the staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped over that. Lori asked right off at the beginning of the year for an extension to the 27th to
And you'll be
provide.
sharing the results of that. That's right.
Normally I share the results with you folks, and so that's why I didn't think it'd be fair to share with you folks before I shared it with my team. So that's why I asked for a couple of week delay there. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm sorry, in that cover letter it states, please don't worry about the bonus.
No, you'll get your bonus because you're going to get us to complete the Civic Center before March of 2031, right?
Oh, no, I don't think it's anything. I took that out. I don't think that's in our contract.
Oh,
Oh,
it's.
oh, okay, yeah.
All right, any more discussion on the process?
Yes, just one more question, Chair. So the copy that we're looking at right now is a draft. I'm assuming that Cindy will send us the form without the draft marks and something that we can fill in easily?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, can I get an approval to follow this process?
Chair, I move that we adopt the process outlined in the committee agenda.
Second? Art? We have a motion on the table to approve the process.
I'll take it.
Thank you. All right, no objection? Pass. All right, so summary of the requests. I think there was only one, right, Cindy?
Yes, just for Dan to follow up in the investigation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, HR committee is adjourned. First one in the bag.
That's right.
Did I start to get red in the face and on the neck?
No, that's fine.
Friday, January 24th, 2025. It is approximately 11:05 a.m. We're only 35 minutes late. That's pretty good. First of all, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Kika Bukowski,
Present.
Anthony Alto,
Present.
Don Takeuchi Apuna is excused, Lisa Baker,
Present.
Natalie Iwasa,
Here?
Roger Morton is excused, Christopher Moylan.
Here.
Hi, Chris. Joe O'Donnell is excused. Ed Sniffen is excused. Art Tolentino. I see him. Robert Yu.
Here, Chair.
And the chair is present. First of all, is there anyone here in the audience or online that would like to submit testimony on any of the agenda items? Any of the agenda items? Hearing none. First of all, as we clarified earlier, there is a motion that would be needed to approve the video summaries of the December 2024 board meeting. I kind of checked that the dates, the times that these various items occurred is sort of correct. I mean, I can't tell you for sure, but it seems pretty correct. And of course, the reason why I say that is because we moved around in the agenda so we could take the items that we needed to take out of order because of the potential loss of quorum. So with that, can I have a motion if everyone is in agreement?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Lisa. And second, so made by motion, no, Lisa made the motion, Anthony seconded. Any discussion, members? If not, I will take it that we have unanimous consent. So thank you very much. I do have some hard stops. Kika, you're at 12, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll try to stay as long as.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Art, when's your hard stop?
It can be at 12. I have an early afternoon flight out, that's why.
Okay.
And
So
thanks.
thank you, Art, for showing up, even with your flight out. So what I would like to do is to take out of order Hitachi Rail Honolulu JV versus Honolulu Authority Honolulu Authority, and then the City County of Honolulu et al. Civil number 1CCV-24-0001819. Members, any objection to taking that agenda item out of order?
We don't have the parents who are gonna present them.
Oh, they're not here yet?
Yeah, I've asked them to come.
All right, so let's not do that. We'll just keep going on the agenda. I just was concerned because, we have hard stops that we have to be concerned about. So with that, let's go back to, by the way, is any public testimony on agenda item number 3, which is the approval of video summaries of December 2024? Seeing none, hearing none.
Sure.
Oh, here they come. Okay, but before that, because Kika has a hard stop, let's go to committee report number 4, Roman numeral number 4, and we'll begin with the January 24th, 2025 Project Oversight Committee, followed by Roberts and Lisa's committee. First of all, anyone here to testify on agenda item number 4? Online? No. So let's begin with you, Kika, if we can get that quick summary.
Chair, thank you. The Project Oversight Committee met this morning. We reviewed the November monthly progress report as well as the October and November PMOC report. We also reviewed the Rapid Transit Stabilization Agreement Letter of Assent status and approved the requested contract amendment, Program Management Support Consultant 3 additional funds. Thank you.
Any discussion, members? Hearing none, then we'll move on to agenda item 4B. It's the January 24th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting summary by Robert.
Chair, thank you. The Finance Committee meeting looked at the December cash flow and the annual projected expenditures. There are no action items required. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, members? Hearing none, then we'll go to the last agenda item on 4C, which is the January 24th, 2025 Human Resource Committee meeting by Lisa. Congratulations on completing your first hearing.
Thank you. We met this morning just prior to this meeting, and we are beginning the Executive Director CEO's evaluation process, which is we hope to conclude it by the next board meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Members, any discussion? Seeing none. So with that, we have completed agenda item number 4, the committee reports. Before I move on, anyone here who wanted to testify on agenda item number 4? Seeing none, hearing none. With that, now members, we notice that our attorneys have walked in, so we will now take out of order because I'm going to have a problem with the quorum. Agenda item number 8, which is the Hitachi Rail Honolulu JV versus Honolulu Authority, City and County of Honolulu et al., civil number 1 CCV-24-000819. I believe we will have to discuss this in executive session. I don't think there's anything that you can or do present to the public, right? Kathleen or Lisa? You don't have anything, right? Okay, so members, first I would like to have a motion for executive session. And the board is moving to enter into executive session pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-4 and subsection 92-5A4. And this is to consult with our board's attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duty, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. May I have that motion, please?
Chair, I so move.
And a second? Second by Robert. Thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes.
Did you want to take testimony prior to going into executive session?
I thought I called for it. If not,
Not on this item.
okay, let me ask for, is there anyone here to testify on agenda item number 8 before we go into executive session? Seeing none? No online? So with that, I have a motion and a second on the move to executive session. Members, any discussion?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to, thank you. I'd like to state for the record that I understand I will not be allowed in the executive session. This is because I have not signed the confidentiality agreement, and that is because there is a difference of opinion between Corporation Counsel and the State Attorney General's office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So they'll put you in the waiting room. Anyone else? Any other discussion? And like I said earlier, we are going into, took this agenda item out of order because we have at least 2 members who have hard stops and we would lose quorum at that time. So any objections to going into executive session, members? Hearing none, we have unanimous consent. We will be going into executive session. Everyone who is not involved will have to leave because we have people online and they have to have access to this room. So with that, please, if you're not a member of Kathleen or Lisa, do you need anyone in Hart? Thank you and welcome back to the Board of Directors meeting, Friday, January 24th, 2025. As you know, we went out on executive session and I will do the summary. However, before doing that, I would like to inform everyone that we are now without a quorum. So we will continue with the meeting. And members
Chair?
just, yeah?
Chair, I'm sorry, you have to give a summary of what was discussed in
I
executive.
was going to do it before that. after
Okay,
that.
very good. Thank you.
I said that I would give the summary, but I wanted everyone to know we have no quorum. So because of that, the Sunshine Law permits us, the board, to receive testimony. We technically can ask questions of the people testifying. However, we have to be very careful because we cannot interact in any way, be deemed to be interacting with each other. So the question is, if I follow up on something Lisa says, it may be deemed to be interacting with Lisa, because then Lisa would say, oh, and follow up. So my recommendation is maybe we should just receive testimony and I guess we could ask, if you have a question to ask, Dan can tell you when you overstep. However, this is the way the rule is. and we try our best to follow sunshine. So with that, let me summarize. We had agenda item number 8, which was the Hitachi Rail litigation. We had present with us 2 members of the Corporation Council. What happened in this, no votes were taken. What we did receive was an update of that litigation, where it looks like whether Hitachi is going to further engage in any kind of mediation or whatever, but we've left that up to whatever our attorneys have told us. Is that sufficient? Okay. So with that, members, we are going to move on. And again, with that caveat. By the way, is there anyone here who wants to say anything about agenda item number 8 before we move on? And again, no vote was taken on agenda item number 8. So we're going to move now.
Chair.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is there any way we could defer an item until the next meeting?
Yes, if you
So
want.
I'm just looking at the executive director and CEO update, right? And I understand when Lori presents her update on A, B, and C, we could ask questions. But just looking at the subject matter, it seems like it's something that
Others
that
who-
board members may have some discussion at the same time. So your call, but it just seems to me this is one of the items that we may want to defer until the next meeting, so we could have a better discussion on it.
I will take your recommendation, and in fact, I will defer.
Could I just say,
Yes.
Chair, there may be items that we could hear a report on that aren't going to require broad discussion. Could we not take it item by item and let the chair decide whether it's an item that should be
yeah, no, that's fine.
depending on what Laurie says?
Yeah, that's fine.
Try not to deferring too much work
Yeah.
till the next meeting because it'll run even longer.
Yeah. No, I just thought it may be something Kika or whoever that's not here today may want to chime in on stuff. That's all.
Well, I think if I could, I would like to, I'd like to defer agenda item number 5 because it talks about 2024 accomplishments, 2025 major milestones, and the FTA quarterly meeting in December. So with no objection, I'd like to defer that, yes.
I object.
You
I would like to hear the 5A.
2024 accomplishments?
Yes,
We're just going to defer to the next meeting.
I
So-
know, but I think it would be imperative to hear what those are, actually both the A and B, simply for the purposes of, we're working on metrics for the executive director, CEO, and we're working on evaluation.
You know that you can't ask any real
Right.
questions on
I
that.
would just like to hear what Lori, and we also deferred her update last month. So I kind of feel like it's important for us to get her update each month. It's not insignificant.
Okay. Having an objection to deferral, I'm going to call agenda item number 5, which is the executive director and CEO's update. First of all, anyone here to testify on agenda item number 5? Hearing none, no one online. So with that, is it going to be you, Laurie, or Rick Keene? Oh, Rick, you want to do it? I have Rick Keene down on my notes here. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, fair enough, Chair. I got out of the deal in our board meeting sooner than anticipated. So some of the big things that the HEART team accomplished, it was very significant.
2024, just to
2024, yeah.
It's
It was
okay.
very, very significant. So thank you, Lisa, for recommending that I report on it. So in the beginning of the year, we did amend the full funding grant agreement. And just to repeat, that is highly unheard of for FTA to do that. So we were able to get that and release additional tranche monies from that $744 million that FTA we were contracted with them. The other big one is the 20th and final 4-car train was received, and we're working on doing commissioning on that, all of the trains. in October, we executed the Tudor Perini contract to do the CCGS. And throughout the year, still making progress on Airport Guideway Station and the utilities relocation. And I do really want to thank the board for giving me an extension on my contract. You don't know what a relief that is on not just myself, but the Heart Ohana as well. Are there any questions that you can ask me? Yes. Yes.
Just one, am I allowed to ask the total amount of the tranche received?
Yes, so there was two tranches, the $125 million for the amending of the FFGA and $250 million for awarding of the CCGS contract.
Thank you.
And then also, I do want to add, along with, I mentioned the 20th train, but we have started commencing testing on segment 2. So you folks have already started to see the trains coming along on that segment. And the goal is still to hand that segment 2 to DTS before the end of the year. Any other questions on 20?
I think I can ask you this. You know, we have the 90-day period that's got to go. Have we started that 90-day period yet?
No.
No, okay, okay. That was my question.
I think I'll cover it a little bit in the 2025
Okay.
items.
So any questions? Remember, any other questions? And remember, we are constrained by the rules. Chris, anything? Natalie, anything? No, okay. With that, then let's go to B 2025 major milestones.
Okay, thank you. So the AGS construction will be complete within the next few months. And in the June timeframe, we will start the trial running. That's what you were asking about, Chair. And yes, we did anticipate about 90 days on the segment 1, but we're hoping it'll be less, but it is a more complicated process this time because segment 1, we didn't have revenue service ongoing. So for this one, that's why we shut down these last 2 weekends, brought down segment 1, migrated the information between 1 and 2 and brought them up. And kudos to the Heart team, DTS, and Hitachi. They did a phenomenal job. I don't think there were no more hiccups. You know, they did a really good job on the last 2 weekends. So, like I mentioned, we're planning on going into trial running later on this summer. So just to recap, once we open up segment 2 or hand over segment 2, that is 84% of the guideway and 13 of the 19 stations. So that's a huge milestone for Heart. We will continue to do the utility relocations. Downtown should be done summertime also. And shortly after Tudor Perini, you'll start to see columns going up this summer. So as I mentioned, I wasn't here earlier this morning because I was at DLNR board meeting, and I'm just so grateful to the board. They were able to grant us approval to get that easement U, and because Tudor Perini was, I think in their contract with them, they were supposed to have access mid-January to start to do the soil borings. Was it mid-January? Oh, okay, December. So I'm just very thankful DLNR board was able to put this on the agenda and they approved it today. So within the next couple of weeks, they'll do soil borings on easement U, and then, like I said, you'll start to see columns coming up in the summertime. Let's see. Anything else that I missed, team? Oh, they're not paying attention. They're going to get it later. Thank you.
Chair, could I ask a question?
Any questions on 2025?
Is there any concern? I mean, you talked about how we were supposed to be in December. So we're only talking about 3 weeks, but is there any indication that this might lead to a delay claim or?
If we don't get them access within February, we are fully anticipating a letter from them on a delay.
So we don't have much time now, but you reckon you could do it?
So that's why today was critical. That's why I thank you for allowing me to go this morning. I think it made a big impact to show how important it was for us that we be there.
Well, congratulations on doing that, because that's a powerful community.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, Chair, I have a couple. Lori, could you please state on the segment 2 that represents how much percentage and how many number of stations? Was it 84%?
84%
13.
of the guideway and 13 of the 19 stations. So that's, of course, the truncated full funding grant agreement.
Right, okay, thank you. One more question. So on the easement U, we were given some testimony from the, I think it was a attorney representing the owners of, or people who lived in that property there,
Yes.
the 15-story building. And so they had quite a lot of concerns about, you know, the impact that that was going to have, having that, the guideway come so close to their property. As I understand it, these are elderly people, lower income, have accessibility issues, and also concerns about, you know, emergency vehicles being able to come in on a timely manner. Was that discussed during the DLNR meeting?
Absolutely. So the attorney was there to represent them. And of course, I had our TPAR team and Matt was with me. And you can see repeated letters that we have sent to them to address their concerns. And the DLNR board was really good about what they were asking us to do is impossible at this time. They wanted us to show our design plans and that HFD has signed off on it. Well, this is a design build. Tudor Perini, there are no designs that I can hand over showing that fire department has signed off and approved. They don't exist yet. So what we need them to do is get in there, do their exploratory, their pothole or their soil borings to ensure that there are no utilities there. So the discussion was very robust this morning, and we assured them that we are in constant communication with fire department. We meet with them monthly. They're very much aware of this situation. They have made it clear that the primary access to that community is through the senior living property. The fire hydrants are on their property, and the main access is through Eva Lake to their property. Easement U is secondary. It is gated, it is locked, it is blocked, it's not a thoroughfare. So once the board understood that, it's all in the documentation, they were very supportive of what's going on. And so to mitigate the noise, we've limited the hours. We can only work between 6 and 8. 6 and 8. Dust control, we have to adhere to DOH. We have to do dust mitigating things. And the main things we could not agree to was they wanted us to pay for any damages to their property, but we're not even going on their property. They wanted us to indemnify them and be liable to them, but we're not accessing the property. So we could not agree to those things. But we did mention that if there are any claims, there is a claim process that they can submit their complaint to us.
Okay, thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Chair.
Anything else, Chris? Anything? No? All right, so let's move on to your update C, Federal Transit Administration's quarterly meeting in December.
So that was a very positive meeting. They did come down and visit with us. Some of the main things that we talked about is the risk update and, of course, the progress of the project. And they are very pleased. Like I said, it was a very positive meeting. And in this meeting, they gave us guidance to grant approval, their acceptance to spend some of that excess funds when you look at our financial plan to go past, towards Ala Moana. So that's why we have set up pre-briefings with all of you folks, or offered to explain all of the numbers that will be updated and will be coming to the board in, I believe it's going to go to the POC first. I'm not sure if it also has to go to the full board in February, because we will be moving funds between the CPPs and adjusting the unallocated and allocated contingencies. So once all of these numbers are updated, because we've just got their acceptance, Corey and his team and our finance team are working together to update all of those numbers. You'll see a difference in the monthly report, and you'll see a difference in the cash flows going forward after we get your folks' approval in February.
Okay, you done?
Yes.
Any questions, members? Seeing none, hearing none? Okay.
There's
Thank
lots
you
I'd
very
like
much.
to say, but there's
we can't discuss. We can only ask questions.
So with that, again, before I move on to the next agenda item, anyone here to have wanted to testify or say anything about agenda item number 5? I don't see anyone, I don't hear anyone. So we're now going to move to agenda item number 6, which is Sandy, monthly update on critical position recruitment. Anyone here to testify on this agenda item? Seeing none and hearing none. Sandy?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to provide continued input on our monthly critical position recruitment report. I'm pleased to announce that we've made some progress in filling our key positions. I'll walk you through the highlights of the report that we've prepared for today. Starting from the top, the procurement contract management assistant role was filled on January 6th, followed by the civil engineer 3 position on January 13th, and these positions are reflected in lines 1 and 2. Next Monday, January 27th, the planner 4 and grants manager role will be filled. That's reflected in line 3. A computer programmer referenced in line 4 will also be filled. The projected date is by February 3rd. And lastly, the accountant 1 position, which is on line 8, was accepted this morning with a start date of February 18th. We're continuing our efforts to fill the remaining 12 positions. These are the positions that are referenced on the page, the first page here, and are not shaded. Page 2 of the report references the vacant funded city positions, and these are under review as we recruit to fill our critical positions. Qualified candidates are being assessed for these positions too. Page 3 references the vacant unfunded positions, which are highlighted in pink. Next, for the head count, the total budgeted positions represent the following categories on the legend that's printed to the right of the report. The hired, future hires, recruiting, vacant funded positions, which are all shaded in blue, and active employees. The sum of these categories totals 72, which is the total budgeted positions. Adding the 26 vacant city unfunded positions, which is the pink section, to the 72 budgeted positions increases the total to 98 positions, and this is the number of our authorized positions. Additionally, I'd like to summarize our current head count of the 44 active employees that are referenced on the chart. At the end of last month, we had 42 active employees, which included 6 appointees and 2 89-day contract employees. With the 2 hires in January, our city headcount increased to a workforce of 44 employees, which represents our total active employees. For December, I'm happy to report there were no employment separations. In summary, we're making steady progress in filling our critical roles while continuing our recruitment efforts to fill additional vacancies. We'll be participating in the Hawaii Career Expo on next week, Wednesday, January 29th, to support our recruitment efforts. I think this concludes our staffing report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Members, any questions?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, wait, Chris, Anthony, and then Chris. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm just wondering if you've been able to persuade that guy to stay on longer, or how things are going in finding a number 2.
I have not convinced him to stay on any longer, and I do have a number 2. He's probably going to start April 1st. It is another city employee, so we wanted to make sure that we notified mayor and MD first.
Okay.
Chris?
Do we know this person?
You might, yes.
Okay, Chris?
Okay, this is just a format question. Since this is the time I've had to participate remotely because I just got out of the hospital yesterday, but is it possible in future reports for you to increase that font about 4 times so that the words actually fill up the whole rectangle instead of being less than half the rectangle? I can't even read any of this stuff.
Maybe what we can do, Chris, is exactly what Natalie's request, same thing on the cash flow. We can send it to you so you can zoom in and out as you wish because, or maybe 11 by 17 or something.
Yes, we'll work on making it, improving on it.
I think in 5 seconds, you could select the whole table, change the font, and it would fill up those little boxes. It solved the whole problem.
Thank
Anyway,
you
thanks
that
for whatever you can do.
Anyone else? I just have a request, and I think it's within what we can do. The next time, because we have new members, I'm not sure if they all had, you remember that big graph not graph, but the little chart that we give for who are HDR employees and who are all of those?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, could you update that and give everyone a copy of that as well?
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because we're starting a new year.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much. Now we're gonna move to agenda item number 7, which is legislative update. We haven't seen Joey in a while. Anyone here wishing to testify on the legislative update? It has 3 items on it. And I don't hear anyone or see anyone. So Joey, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, Chair and members. 4 measures to report to the board this morning, or this afternoon. There's 2 that were agendized and 2 that are not on the agenda. So I'll speak to the 2 that are on the agenda. First off, we have Senate Bill 220. This measure is relating to transportation financing. This is a county surcharge on state tax extension, general excise tax, and transit accommodations tax. This authorizes a county that has adopted a surcharge to state tax to extend the surcharge to December 31, 2056. It also extends the end date of the 1% transit accommodations tax increase to the same date, December 31, 2056. This requires the state auditor to conduct an annual audit and review of the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation until December 31st, 2056. And it also requires the comptroller to certify the HART invoices for capital costs until December 31st, 2056. So this is being offered by Senators Elefante, Aquino, Chang, and Richards. And the current referral right now is TCA EIG, also Ways and Means. So Chair, this is a straightforward extension bill that extends both the GET and the TAT county surcharges for Oahu until December 31, 2056, with the provisions to conduct an annual review, audit, as well as the extends the comptroller's charge to certify the Honolulu Authority our invoices for capital costs until 2031-56.
That's Senate Bill 450 something, right?
It's
467. The one you just talked about.
That was Senate Bill 220.
Oh, 220, but I thought
220.
2056 was the next one, 467. Oh, and that's 26.
467 is till 28. Is
Yeah,
to
467 is 2045. The summary has Senate Bill 220 at 2045 and 467 to 2056. That's reversed. That's wrong,
I think those are
right?
reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my fault, Chair. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
You're fine.
Okay. Okay, and then what's your third item, since you might, before I take any questions for you?
Okay, well, no, the second item would be Senate Bill 467, similar measure, also an extension, but this is the This is part of the Hawaii State Association of Counties package, slightly different provisions, but this one, the county package authorizes each county that has established a surcharge on state tax before July 1st, 2015 to extend the surcharge until December 31st, 2045. At the same rates if the county does so before January 1, 2028. Provides that no county surcharge on state tax authorized for a county that has not established a surcharge on state tax before July 1st, 2015 shall be levied before January 1, 2019 or after December 31, 2045. And repeals certain conditions on the use of surcharges received from that state for counties having a population equal to or less than 500,000 that adopt a county surcharge on state tax. So again, this is part of the HSAC package, the Hawaii State Association of Counties package submitted, and this one was introduced by the Senate President by request. So again, this measure is enabling legislation for all the counties to adopt or extend their surcharges, including Oahu County. But it would have to be the county who would act on this as opposed to HART if they wanted the extension, and they would have to do so by ordinance.
And before I take questions, what's your agenda item number C?
We don't. For the agenda items number C, there are two measures. Senate Bill 492 relating to also to the general excise tax. This is another. It is a reintroduction of the HSAC package bill on the Senate side it was a reintroduction by Senators Richard and Chang. But in looking at the legislation, it looks like only Senator Richards signed on to it. And then the House bill that I'm also bringing before you is the same. It's also the House version of the HSAC bill that was introduced by the House Speaker, Representative Nadine Nakamura. So the language for House Bill 375, Senate Bill 492, and Senate Bill 467 are identical.
Paul?
Yes.
Okay, members, any questions?
Chair?
Yes.
Just wondering, Joey, if you have a number for that House bill? I don't think you mentioned it.
I'm sorry, yes.
375.
So that is House Bill 375.
Okay, thank you.
Anthony, you have any questions?
Not really. I mean, I think there are some other bills that typically get introduced every year. Senator Rhodes usually puts one in to cut the GET in half. Are there any others like that, or this is it?
This is it.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Any of these scheduled for any kind of hearing yet?
So far, no. We just got through the bill introduction period, and I checked. These are today's statuses, and they haven't gotten scheduled for any hearings.
And the referral, is it the same?
The referrals are not quite the same. For Senate Bill 492, it is referred to EIG, WAM, Ways and Means. And Senate Bill 467 has the same referral. And the House bill.
Did you say TC?
I'm sorry.
Those two Senate bills are going to the Transportation Committee as well, right?
They're going to EIG, which I think is intergovernment, and I'm sorry but I think it's an intergovernment committee. Or I'm sorry, I have to double check the acronym. I apologize. It's new to me. EIG.
Yeah, it's new to me too, but not Transportation Committee.
It
That seems odd.
I could be. I have to check. I apologize. I have to get back to you.
And
And
the
then-
House Bill.
For House
referrals.
Bill 375, it is it's just straight finance, one referral, one committee.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. So you keep us posted as soon as it gets any hearing, right?
Yes, I'll keep the board posted, and I'll let our board executive administrator, I'll notify her if these bills are being scheduled for hearings.
Okay.
We can't really discuss anything, but presumably the Government Affairs Committee could look at this and propose a response from the HART board. Can't discuss it, but
Is that a question?
no. I
To
guess
Joey?
It's a question, right?
Yeah, no,
we could do that.
That's up.
Yeah, you can
that's
ask him a
certainly within the
question.
board's purview.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Not? Thank you very much, Joey.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't have anything. Okay, agenda item number 8, we already went through. Agenda item number 9 is discussion of proposed amendments to the rules operating procedure of the Board of Directors. Members, as you know, we discussed this as to, we went from the gamut of whether it was proposed before or not. So we decided, why don't we just start again? So in your folders, members, is a, is this in their folders?
No, that's for each.
Okay.
What they have in their folders is the current version of the rules.
Okay, so there's a current version of the rules, and if you recall, the idea was we will schedule possibly 3 meetings so that we would have the discussion in public. And what I'm gonna read out, members, and is what rules will be discussed at the next meeting. And if there's nothing wrong, if you don't feel that anything should be changed, you can say it shouldn't be changed. So it'll be Rule 1 through 7, and that's the existing rules, will be in the upcoming meeting. The following meetings will be Rule 8. Rule 8. And that has all the different committees. And the third meeting, we'll discuss Rule 9 to 12. And if we have any other proposed rules that people would like for us to consider, we can throw it into that last group. So again, members, using the rules, so we all are working off of the correct version. It's in our folder, and that's the order of the discussion. So next meeting, I will be calling Rules 1 to 7 for discussion and amendment, if applicable. The meeting after that will be Rule 8, which is just a discussion of all the different committees as we now stand. And the last meeting will be Rules 9 to 12 and any other proposed rules. Any questions? We can't do anything. We can't do anything, sorry. You can't.
Correct. No, if I may, if
Yes.
anyone has questions or comments about the rules, please contact me, please contact Cindy, so we can help with some of those things. But yeah, that's all.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, Dan said that if you have any questions about the rules, because he did a lot of heavy lifting on the version that you received earlier. We're going back to the original version. Please contact him or Cindy, and they can help you work through any questions that you may have.
May I ask a question?
Of him?
Of the process.
I don't think so.
If you just want to talk like meeting logistics, like when the meeting is going to be, that's fine. But if you're getting into anything more substantive than that, I'd say no. You are allowed to have discussions outside of board meetings with up to one other board member You just can't then serially communicate with another. So you could speak with the chair after this meeting.
Can I just state about remembering what we agreed to last meeting for the input for the rules?
I suppose if you wanted to recap from last meeting, I don't see any harm in that.
Okay. Just the one point that Akika made, that we also are looking, we should be bringing the reasons why we're making changes, not just the change. Thank you. Is that okay?
You
Cat's out
kind
of
of
the bag.
implicated Kika.
You can't-
What's that?
You implicated Kika, which is sort of, but anyway.
Oh, sorry.
But that's okay.
You can't unsay what you said.
Yeah, you already said
back
it.
now.
So with that, members, that was agenda item number 9. By the way, was there anyone here who wished to testify on agenda item number 9 or online? Thank you, Chris. That helps. Chris is doing this. Okay, with that, is there any, I guess you can do summary, right? We can do summary. So the next item on the agenda is summary of board member requests made at this meeting. Cindy?
Okay, there's a request on the update on Hitachi in March. There's also a request to make the staffing update table a little bit bigger so it's more legible, as well as a request for an updated org chart at the next meeting.
I have another one.
Go ahead.
Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, the other one I mentioned before, consistent with the other similar bodies in which I've served, there is typically a information-only item that summarizes recent ridership. I think each month we should be able to see that, what it was over the last month and what the trend has been over a long time. I think all of us ought to be able to say off the top of our heads what our ridership is. And right now I can't do that. And that would be something you can say, okay, go on the city DOT website and look it up. I think that would be nice just to have in our binders every month. That would be a request.
It's not our Kuliana.
Cindy, without any discussion, could I just mention to you that the city has a fair and rate commission that meets, once a month or something like that? And that committee,
Robert.
oh, damn, what did I just say? Okay, so Cindy, the city and county has a fair and rate commission committee. It's a committee appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. And every month, one of the agenda item is transit ridership. So whoever's interested in it could also log on to the rate commission meeting.
Or alternatively, you could say, since that document was already prepared for that commission, you could just stick a copy of it in our binders every month, and that wouldn't require a lot of work for anyone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think you just violated Sunshine. Because you're reacting to Robert, but we heard you. Okay,
Check.
yes.
Could I just ask Laurie a question? Is ridership part of Hart's Kuliana?
It is not part of us. This is for DTS, and I believe it's on their website every month what the ridership is.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, members? If not, I believe that without any objections, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.